This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
What is up, everyone, and welcome to a big Tuesday edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily after a Monday night of sports that will not be forgotten anytime soon by most people, not just here in the Peg, but from coast to coast. The Toronto Blue Jays, on the back of a George Springer 3-run home run in the bottom of the 7th, hold off the Seattle Mariners and are going to the World Series for the first time since 1993. And as soon as that was finished and they started partying in the club that is the Jays dressing room facility, the Winnipeg Jets were mounting a comeback of their own. Jonathan Toews with his first as a Winnipeg Jet and returning to the NHL, followed up by a beauty from Mark Scheifele, and the Jets win their 5th in a row last night over the Calgary Flames. We're going to get to all of it. We'll hear from Jonathan Toews, from Scott Arniel, from Mark Scheifele, and we will definitely be talking about the upcoming World Series and the moment last night, one of many, the Springer dinger, Hoffman shutting down the Mariners in the 9th inning. Josh Goldberg was in the building yesterday. He'll be first up today. Kevin Sawyer was in the building in Calgary last night. He will join us for an extended Jets conversation. And then before the end of the program, Patty and Jake are going to jump on. They were both at the game last night. I'm not sure whether either of those two have settled down yet, but looking forward to having the boys on. And speaking of Pat and Jake, we are doing another, tomorrow night is October 22nd, which means that it's the next edition of the WST Wednesday Night Poker Series. If you haven't played with us before, would love to have you join us over at coolbet.com. There will be a $100 bounty on my head, on Remis's head, as well as Jeff Hamilton, who is a 2-time champion and right now bring the belt. So we're all gunning for Hammer tomorrow. It's going to start at 8 o'clock. We'll put out information on the newsletter, on all of our social channels. But if you have any questions, you can send us a DM or so. It should be a lot of fun. It always is, and we continue to grow the poker tourney. So tomorrow night, 8 p.m., would love to see you with us. That is Wednesday night. Just before we bring in Michael Remis, who's probably one of the few people that's not completely overjoyed about the result, being a longtime Mariners fan, but held himself very well throughout this series. I know happy for a lot of you in the chat, and it certainly won't be a bad thing for the show. So some silver linings, I guess, despite an incredible season, an incredible run by the Mariners, and we'll get to that as well. But listen, before we bring in Michael Remis, a huge thanks to the sponsors that make WST happen each and every day. Of course, our partners over at CoolBet, Princess Auto, Uptown Alley, Canadian Club, St. Vital Dental Center, Rollies Transfer, and the HSC Millionaire Lottery. Of course, the Winnipeg Jets and Chud's Power Sports, Manitoba Battery, Clean Line, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, Little Brown Jug. We will get to a why not question of the day. And of course, the fan feedback, I think, is going to be very fun about people's nights last night. And we'll do that for fansfirst.ca. Remo, what a series. What a Game 7. How are you today?
Yeah, people don't care about how I'm doing. They care about what an incredible Game 7 it was yesterday for Blue Jays fans. The videos of euphoria returning to the World Series for the first time since 1993. Just when you thought they were going to blow the series, George Springer, who did not look great in Game 6 after getting hit on the knee. And there were people in our chat saying, are we sure about Springer in this game with this wonky knee? Like, could barely get up at times in Game 6, but went in and just launched that pitch from Bizzardo into the outfield seats. Total euphoria at Rogers Center. Was incredible to watch. And Blue Jays fans going crazy. And full credit to them. This was a season coming in where I don't think anyone had division winner, best record in the AL on the radar, and they delivered in what has been a magical season.
Yeah, and listen, I'll say this. The Mariners, a hell of a baseball team. Like, I really do feel for, I know a bunch of Mariners fans, you and LTE and Edmonton. Obviously, we got a lot of friends in BC that, have always sort of pulled for the Mariners. And what a team they are. I mean, Cal Raleigh, a historic season. I mean, he broke Mickey Mantle's all-time record for home runs by a switch hitter. He led the league with 60 from the catching position. I personally think that he should be the MVP. And, J-Rod, who was phenomenal last night, really set the tone early on for the Mariners. Suarez, you go down the list, and I mean, those young pitchers that they've got. In particular, I love that Brian Wu, and I think maybe the best thing that happened to the Blue Jays last night, Remo, was Wu getting taken out of the game. But it was fascinating. It had everything that you wanted in a Game 7. It had drama. It had unusual pitching assignments. We saw Gosman and Bassett go in relief. And then, of course, we saw Jeff Hoffman come in, who was a bit of a gas can at times this year and made Jays fans very, very nervous. But he went and got it done. And for all the worry about the bullpen, especially considering John Schneider's brain cramp in game number 5, it was Hoffman, the much maligned Hoffman, that pitched 3 perfect innings in game 6 and game 7 to help the Jays win. And now I think either way, Reem, I mean, whoever won the AL was going to be a big underdog and would be sort of I think a lot of people would be pulling for them just because they're not the big money Dodgers. And I certainly would have said the same thing if the Mariners had won Game 7, been pulling for them. But right now, you got a team that does feel kind of like a team of destiny moving on to the World Series. And I guess one of the biggest little tidbits from the crazy celebration that the Jays had afterwards is that Bo Bichette declared himself ready. And we'll talk to Josh about what that means, who might be coming off of the roster, what they can expect from Bo going forward. But the bottom line is the Jays are still alive, winning in one of the most, I mean, it really will be, I think, an iconic win last night in Game 7. And George Springer, who's been the MVP of this team since the first day of the season, coming through once again in the clutch for Toronto.
Yeah, when you think about iconic Toronto Blue Jays home runs, the most recent one, Jose Bautista's in the ALDS, comes to mind, but this Springer one surpassed it. Game 7, ALCS, World Series on the line. You're down 3-1, and then the swing of the bat, you're up 4-3. You can put in your closer, who's blowing gas by all the Mariners hitters. And, unfortunately for them, they had the bottom of the lineup due up, which had done absolutely nothing for most of the series, and especially last night. And the Blue Jays, we talked about yesterday, the bottom of the lineup, they had a huge part in all of their wins. You think of Jimenez's 2 home runs in back-to-back games.
Changed the series.
You think of IKF getting on base, Jimenez bunting them over and setting the table for George Springer to hit that home run. So, the Blue Jays up and down the lineup, a lot of very tough outs. No, they don't strike out. They don't swing at bad pitches. I think pitching, we'll have to see how it plays out here. Sometimes you don't know what you're going to get. Shane Bieber was okay yesterday. He was good enough to get innings. And it was Game 7. You knew they were going to do funky stuff with the bullpen. Gosman coming in, he had 3 walks and an inning pitched. But, hey, he didn't allow any runs. And I think that was the theme for Seattle all series, leaving runners on base and missed opportunities. And Bassett came in, pitched 1 inning with a strikeout. So credit to the Blue Jays, pitchers for coming in unusual circumstances and shutting the door. And for them for battling throughout the series, down 2-0, going back to Seattle, winning 2 games there and then winning 2 in a row at home, which, what an atmosphere it is at Rogers Center. I mean, that is certainly up there in all of sports right now.
Dude, have you seen the ticket prices for the World Series right now? It. By the way, if you are thinking about, you know what, hey, you've always wanted to see the Blue Jays in the World Series, you've been waiting over 30 years, go to LA. Straight up, go to LA. I saw Gabe tweeting about this earlier. He said it's not sold out. I mean, you can still get tickets, I believe, for face value in LA. You're looking at 4 figures, easy, get in price for the Rogers Center. And for anyone lucky enough to have tickets, yes, very, very jealous. Jealous of Pat, Jake, Ken Weeb, Joe Piscucci, all our boys that were at the game last night. We'll talk about that coming up. As they say, we're going to have more Jays talk. Josh Goldberg's coming on. We'll certainly hit at the end of the show when Pat and Jake come on. But Remo, for Winnipeg Jet fans, another great night. Connor Hellebuyck standing tall. Special teams, elite once again. But the headline of last night's comeback win has to be Jonathan Toews scoring his first goal in over 2.5 years in the NHL. A huge one, as the Jets were battling away down 1-0. They then go up with guess who, Mark Scheifele from Kyle Connor, and get another win. Jonathan Toews back on the score sheet as a goal scorer in the NHL, and the Jets back in the win column with their 5th in a row.
Yeah, pretty incredible comeback win. Right after you heard during the game them announce the Blue Jays comeback win over the PA at Saddle Dome there.
I can't wait to ask Kevin about that.
And then, then the Jets had their own comeback. Jonathan Toews, we've talked about how good Power Play 2 has looked, and you saw that pass from him in the previous game, and they have a really nice zone entry there. He goes to the front of the net, and Neil Pionk just, floats one in front of the net. Kind of similar-ish to the one he floated on net for Adam Lowry to tip in Game 7. But Jonathan Toews is in front and, put it in past Dustin Wolf and got the Jets on the board. And Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor, what a heater these guys are on, really carrying the Jets here offensively. So, hey, Connor Hellebuyck, you know what you're going to get from him. He has been excellent to start the season and was good enough for them. And the penalty kill for me as well. Big story for the Jets. They are number 1 in the league, over 90% penalty kill percentage, and went 5 for 5 yesterday while winning, going 1 for 5 on the power play. Good enough to get the 2 points. Come back here, day off today, and they'll be hosting the Seattle Kraken, who are at the end of a very long road trip on Thursday. So nice tidy win yesterday for the Jets.
Yeah, the Kraken were in Philly last night. They dropped a 5-2 score, but it was 2-1 for the Jets. Helly, 32 saves, a .970 save percentage in last night's game. Dustin Wolf, who'd had a really rough start to the year, he played well in the Calgary net last night, making 26 saves on 28 shots. But it was that elite offensive firepower of the Jets in the third period that was something that Calgary hasn't had this year and just have had a real tough time making things happen. But you look at Toews' numbers from last night, 18 minutes on the ice, 352 on the power play, just 15 seconds on the shorthanded, but was a master in the draw, 71%, I believe. At one point, he was over 75%. And listen, he's proving his worth to the team in so many different ways, but, a big goal for him last night. And just a couple of other interesting numbers, Remo. Mark Scheifele had 5 shots on net. Alex Iafallo had 8 last night. AI 16-22, and a big part of the Winnipeg Jet power play at 5:43, just below Connor and Scheifele. And of course, Brad Lambert got into his first game of the year. Did not play a ton, 7:43 last night. Actually ended up as a -1. Did have a shot at one point. So, he got in there, but it was a real tight game, obviously trying to come back. They leaned on the big boys, and it was the top 2 centers of the Winnipeg Jets, Jonathan Toews and Mark Scheifele, getting it done. And it just seems like, after that first game, Remis, that the, Jets let that game get away on them. Obviously, had the Furies come back with a couple shorties in the third period to make it close. Since then, they have, done a lot of the things we got used to seeing last year, finding ways to win, not always maybe at their best. We heard Kyle Connor or Mark Scheifele say yesterday that they still didn't think they'd put together their best full 60 minutes. That being said, it's about stacking up points right now, and this team is trying to do what they did last year, and that's getting off to one of the best starts in the NHL.
Yeah, you look at the schedule, and the Jets haven't exactly played, the top of the NHL. A lot of teams that weren't in the playoffs last year, but hey, you got to go in and take care of business, and the Jets have played a consistent game here. They've gotten great goaltending and incredible scoring touch here from Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor. So, great start to the season at 5-1, and you look at the upcoming opponents, more opportunity to add into the win column. Thursday against Seattle on a road trip, Friday on a home back-to-back, Calgary, Sunday, Utah, and then you go for the rivalry game in Minnesota next Tuesday, and then you host Chicago. So, a real opportunity to bank some more points and put themselves in a really strong position to keep pace here in the Central. Colorado off to a hot start. Dallas very strong as well. But the Jets, I didn't think they'd be able to do this. Has 15-1 to start last season. Certainly giving it a run. I don't think they're going to, it's pretty hard to replicate that, but they're looking pretty good and getting contributions up and down the lineup. The ice time distribution, as even as we've ever seen, aside from Brad Lambert yesterday, he got squeezed out. Scott Arniel saying he felt bad because he doesn't play power play, he doesn't play penalty kill, and each team had 5 opportunities. That's 10 times 2. That's 20 minutes. That's a whole period of special teams. That's some quick math right there. So we'll see. We'll see with the lineup if he continues to get on Thursday. But you have to like what you've seen so far from the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Let's hear from Jonathan Toews, who had some great chances over the first 5 games of the season. He got on the scoreboard with an assist. Then he had 2 last game, including just an absolutely beautiful pass to Vladimir Metsnikov to set him up. It was time for him to get on the score sheet with a goal, and he did it last night with a beautiful deflection that tied the game at 1. Here's Jonathan Toews on scoring his first goal back in the National Hockey League, and his first as a member of his hometown Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, these last few games, I feel like I'm really starting to settle in, and I think just think less. And now that some of the systems and just the play calling and the draws and what we do off face-offs, all the little details of our team game starting to finally become second nature. I can go out there and maybe not overthink, but start to relax with the puck and feel a little bit more comfortable and not as afraid to make mistakes. And then, from there the offense comes. I think early on our line had a bunch of chances. We had a lot of puck possession, but then, the flow of the game kind of went the way it did. But I just kept telling myself to be ready for that one chance. And we were talking on the power play. Obviously, it wasn't going our way in the second. When we got our chance in the third, it was nice to just get a stick on it. And sometimes those go in, sometimes they don't. So it's nice to get that first one and start to build some confidence in the offensive zone here.
There's Jonathan Toews on scoring his first goal. And Remis, we talked a lot, and it's been almost hard to sort of keep the, excitement for a guy that, as I always say, is walking straight into the Hall of Fame. Coming here to his hometown, the story was amazing, but ultimately it was going to be written on the ice. And I think it's just safe to say, I don't know how you can dispute that half a dozen games into the return, I think the Jonathan Toews we're seeing right now in October, far beyond, I think, anybody's realistic expectations. And, considering how he's getting better each game, what he just said, how much more comfortable is, it does, and the type of player he is and what he's done in the past, it does give, I think, the majority of Winnipeg Jet fans a pretty unique sense of optimism about what might be possible and what might be different this year come playoff time if they're able to book their ticket to the postseason and go up against the top teams in the NHL in spring.
Yeah, 4 points in 6 games for Jonathan Toews, and played huge minutes. The second most of the forwards in that win against the Islanders a week ago. So he's being trusted in big situation, winning faceoffs. And when you think of what the Winnipeg Jets, when they're healthy, Cole Perfetti, Adam Lowry, Dylan Sandberg coming back, having a center group that includes Jonathan Toews and Adam Lowry could be absolutely huge, especially in the playoffs. So very exciting, thinking, hey, this team is playing well. They're 5-1, but they've said they're not at their best. It was Mark Scheifele saying they hadn't played a full 60, and they don't have their full complement of players. So I think very exciting what Jonathan Toews has produced so far. And even he says, it's coming back to him, and you saw the hands, but the smarts is certainly still there for him.
Neil Pionk, of course, with the blast. He got on the score sheet for the season with an assist. And by the way, Pionk played a team-high 25-24 last night of ice time on the blue line. But, of course, everyone was talking about Jonathan Toews after the goal. And he was asked about how he's feeling just getting his hands back.
I mean, even like my first couple games, you're a little antsy, and usually I feel pretty comfortable at the face-off dot, and you're a little bit jumpy, and you're swatting at pucks, and you're a little bit, when you're antsy, sometimes less is more. So I think the same goes with finding pucks in and around the net. So I was able to get a stick on that one, and nice to see you go in.
All right, Jonathan Toews, after last night's game in Calgary, of course, Toews tied it up off the Pionk shot, and that was Connor and Scheifele who won the game. Here's Jonathan Toews on the dynamic duo of 81 and 55 getting it done for the Jets in the third period.
It's fun to watch. The way they feel the game, and they find seams, and they rink wide the pocket. It's obviously the game nowadays. There's no space. It's so fast, but they just kind of have that connection. A guy like Gabe goes out there too, and just finds that empty space, and he's such a good catalyst for those two. So it's fun to watch that line, and I think we're starting to feel some pressure. Like we got to get some secondary scoring, or at least my line get going a little bit, so we can help those guys out and not rely on them having to score every single night, which they've been doing. So they're definitely elite players, and the way they can kind of spread the game out and just relax the pockets, it's fun to watch.
There's some high praise for Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele from Jonathan Toews. One more from Toews, and he was asked it, now that he's got his first goal and kind of getting into the season, was asked on what attracted him to Winnipeg and the Jets, and how it's gone compared to what his expectations were coming into the season.
Well, I think first and foremost, I didn't know too many guys in the locker room, but everything I'd heard was that they've got an experienced group, and you saw what they did in the playoffs last year, and experience like that only continues to build, and especially their success in the regular season. But the number one thing was the chemistry and just the energy in the locker room that this team has, so that was excuse me, that was a big selling point, and playing for a team like this that can contend and have a chance to win a Stanley Cup, and on top of all that, to do it in my hometown in Winnipeg, I think is a big part of it too. So when it really came down to it, I couldn't see myself wearing any other sweater. So it was a fun process, and definitely excited to at the time to deliver that news to family and friends. So it's been a lot of fun so far.
All right, well, it's been a lot of fun for Jet fans to see number 19 out there doing his thing, and of course getting his first goal last night. Let's move on to Coach Scott Arniel. Now listen, all of this game was happening or the first two periods at least were happening while the Jays and Mariners were taking us through that roller coaster of a Game 7. Here's Arnie on everyone following the Jays game while at the hockey game, including the teams.
We were taking peeks between periods and at the start of the game, and obviously that's awesome for Canada, for the Jays. It was special. That was different. Never been in an atmosphere like that where both hockey teams, every fan, Jet fan, Flame fan, were on their feet applauding that one. So congrats to them. That's great.
That was obviously the biggest sports story in the country last night, and it certainly slipped into the Saddle Dome while the two teams were playing. One guy that maybe the one guy that wasn't locked in to the Jays or even paying attention because he was too busy being locked in and shutting down the Calgary Flames was Connor Hellebuck, who brilliant as usual. Here's what Arnie had to say about his starting goaltender last night.
Yeah, Helly was outstanding. Obviously, a lot of penalties. First two periods took a lot of flow away from that game and kind of limited a lot of guys' minutes. And it was just one of those games that it just felt like there was no real push to it, no real excitement to it. It just was penalty after penalty, and then we were a lot better in the third period. We didn't get many scoring chances, but obviously JT scoring the one, and then Scheif, that was a big one. So, your best penalty killer has to be your goalie, and Helly was.
And, as the coach mentioned, penalties were a huge part of the game. It just seemed to be, always one team or the other on the power play, just killed a power play. And it did have a tough time, as we mentioned, with a guy like Brad Lambert, going to get into the flow of the game. Here's just a little bit more on the game from Coach Arniel.
I think we had 3 5-on-5 scoring chances. I know there's a lot of penalties after the second period. I don't think we got many more in the third. They did a real good job of really with the net front, not letting us get in there, not letting us get into a rush game. They did a lot of good things in their PK. And you knew they were going to answer the bell, and that was pretty much what I told our group. If we didn't go head-to-head and match them, it would be a tough night. And I like the fact that we hung in there, and even though our power play didn't score until the third, there was lots of good looks, and like I mentioned, our PK was solid.
All right, Coach Arniel. Now, you knew he would have something to say on Jonathan Toews scoring his first goal back in the National Hockey League with his Jets. Here's what he had to say on number 19, finally getting on the board.
That leadership, the hockey sense that he has, he's got a great mind for the game. You can hear him when he talks to his line mates, talk to his teammates. He has drive. He has all that stuff we've seen in the past, but now he's real good for our group in the sense that he passes on that knowledge. Again, tonight in the face-off circle, I don't know where he ended up. I think he was 10-4 after the second. He could have been, I'm sure he won close to 15. That's a huge asset for us. We weren't the best face-off team over the years, and he's helped us in that area, and it's helped everybody pick up their game. And so it's his kind of leadership, been there, done that type thing that we're, mostly, really happy to have from him. Yeah, no, happy for him. Get that one out of the way. I think that, his game's been getting better every game, and he had a great one the other night with the 2 assists. And it's probably a big weight off his shoulders. But at the end of the day, we're not looking at these early games. We're just trying to get him up and running and playing and being comfortable with how we play and him feeling good about himself. And when you score goals, that certainly helps.
All right, there is Coach Arniel. Jets back in action on Thursday, home to the Seattle Kraken, and then right back at it against the Calgary Flames on Friday. And don't forget, every day the Jets play, you can get the iconic Big Mac or a filet of fish at McDonald's with their game day deals for just $4.49. But you've got to use the app on every Winnipeg Jets game day, home or away. Fire up the McDonald's app, go to offers, and get on that Jets game day deal of just $4.49 for the iconic Big Mac or the filet of fish. All right, Josh Goldberg's coming up in just a minute. We've got a couple days off of Jet games and of the series. I think that'll be good after the weekend we just had. People can just relax. If you are wanting to maybe get out, change it up a little bit, why don't you pop by and see our friends at Uptown Alley, Winnipeg and Manitoba's #1 place to really go and have a blast. 5-pin lanes, 10-pin lanes, a massive mention. The best, not to mention the best in eats, bar eats. The food is incredible there and a great place to watch the game. They've got a great deal every day, the Bowl and Play special. After 9 p.m., 90 minutes of bowling and a $10 arcade card for just $20.49 per person for 5-pin or $22.49 for 10-pin. And of course, it is an unbelievable place for birthday parties for both kids, teenagers, and adults. An amazing group and corporate events where you can just pick your activities, your meal, your add-ons, and they'll take care of it all together. Give them a call, 488-0000, or online, uptownalley.ca. Again, Uptown Alley's over at 1301 St. Matthews Avenue. The Jays are moving on to the World Series. If you and your family have a move coming up, lean on our friends over at Roley's Transfer. Family owned and operated for over 60 years in Manitoba, and the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba. Check out their website at roleys.com and click on request an estimate. Put in that promo code WST for a special discount on moving services and supplies for WST listeners. Let them know when and where you're moving and what needs to go. And the friendly staff at Roley's will turn around quickly with a great quote and get you locked in for the white glove treatment and service that they've been famous for now into their 7th decade. For all your moving needs, make it Roley's. Find out more today at roleys.com. Everyone's smiling today after that baseball game last night. Of course, if you need that smile worked on, why don't you head over and see our pal Dr. Terry and his wonderful staff at St. Vital Dental Center. They've been serving generations of Winnipeggers and Manitobans, and St. Vital now have a beautiful new facility with state-of-the-art equipment and convenient free parking right behind the building at 167 St. Anne's. Of course, St. Vital Dental Center taking care of customers from 6 months to 99 years with everything that you could need when it comes to dental work, from cleanings and checkups all the way to things like dental implants. Check them out online at stviteldental.ca. Make an appointment and tell them your boys at Winnipeg Sports Talk sent you. And I'll tell you what, if you were out last night, there was a lot of hooting and hollering when the Springer Dinger happened, and of course when the Jays iced it. Many of you, if you enjoy whiskey, probably turn to the original Canadian Club. And I imagine there'll be quite a bit of that served up at the Grey Cup coming up next month when we host at Princess Auto Stadium. In the meantime, head on down to your local Manitoba liquor marts for the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers Canadian Club with a special limited edition bottle available right now at your local Manitoba liquor marts, just in time for the push to the playoffs and Grey Cup and holiday festivities. While you're at it, grab one of those club packs too. Good 12 months a year, the CC and Ginger, the Citrus Smash, and of course, the Half and Half. All right, let's talk Jays. I am so jealous of many of my friends, including our next guest, Josh Goldberg, who was in the building last night for an iconic Canadian sports moment. Well, a bunch of them, to be honest. Let's bring in Josh from Blue Jays Nation right now. How you doing today, buddy?
Good times, man. Like, that was what it's all about, being a fan of sports and a fan of a team. You hope to see moments like that at some point in your lifetime. And the Blue Jays have had some, certainly in my lifetime at least, but not in a long time, a home run that consequential in that big of a spot to propel the team into the World Series for the first time in more than 3 decades. It's just, it hasn't been this good of a time to be a Blue Jays fan in quite some time.
And, Josh, we've talked to you about this throughout the year. The most amazing thing about it is that this group, this team, this core was thought to be ready to do this over the past number of years and never even came close. And then this was the year that everyone was out on them. I mean, their win total at the start of the year was 78.5. They were predicted to be a sub 500 ball club. And yet here they are going to the World Series. It really has been an incredible run right from April.
Yeah, I think that's why it feels even more special, I guess is the best word for it, is like you said, it wasn't thought to be the year where this was going to happen. Like a couple of years ago when you had Vladdy saying that last year was the trailer, this year is the movie in 2022, and he didn't have a great year, and the team crashed out against Seattle in the wild card series, and then 2023, sort of the same thing, scratched and clawed, crashed out against Minnesota, and then the bottom fell out last year. And there was some wonder if the window was closing. George Springer on the wrong side of 30, in decline for a couple of years, and wondering about Vladdy's future and just his ability to be a front of the line, a major league superstar. Bo Bichette in the last year of his deal, and then everything happened this year. They get Vladdy signed. He didn't have a great regular season by his standards. Then he goes supernova mode in the playoffs. George Springer had to turn back the clock year and then continued it in the playoffs, and finally had the opportunity, relatively healthy. I mean, he wasn't 100% or close to it, to prove his worth in the postseason. And then all the supporting cast guys, nobody was thought to really be a huge contributor on opening day. And where would they be without Ernie Clement? Where would they be without Addison Barger? Last night, where would they be without Isaiah Kiner-Falefa? Andres Jimenez had a huge couple of moments in the series. It was just a total team effort, top to bottom. And I think that that's just really emblematic of the entire season so far for this roster.
I want to get to the bottom of the lineup in a minute, but let's start with Springer, who, has the iconic home run. This is a guy that has been a hero in the playoffs before, but he was really the hero all year long. And I'm sure you'd agree, Josh, that from 1 to 62, George Springer's contributions and impact might have been the most influential thing to get the Jays to where they are. And I don't really think there's much doubt that he was the regular season MVP who then, kind of put that cherry on top of it with the heroics last night.
Yeah, no question. He was the constant on the team and in the lineup all season long. He's been able to stay healthy, relatively speaking, the last couple of years. He missed a little bit of time this season, but not much. And he didn't really have any lulls over the course of a long season and a grind. And that's saying something for somebody who just turned 36 years old to be able to do that. And even after fouling the ball off of his knee in game 5, he just found a way to still be upright enough to give himself a chance, and he made an adjustment and he beat Bizzardo to the spot with that sinker last night and put a great swing on a baseball. And he's been one of the best postseason performers ever in the history of baseball. I think he's got 23 home runs in the playoffs in 78 games and is tied for third all time on that list. And he was clutch, as he has been so many times in his career, and honestly, a number of times as a Blue Jay. He's just one of these players who might be wired a little bit differently, and the big moments don't seem to faze him too much, and he battles through pain and bumps and bruises and finds a way to come up at his absolute best when the team needs it the absolute most. And they wouldn't be anywhere this season without him, and it was honestly really cool to see him deliver in that spot last night.
Now, Springer is a hero forever. Vladdy, absolute legendary performance throughout the playoffs after being in a coma basically for the month of September.
Mm-hmm.
But this was such a tight series. It went the distance. It was right down to the 9th inning. I mean, the margin was so slim between these two teams. Would you agree with the take that this series might have been won by the bottom 3 hitters of the Jays batting order when you look at their contributions overall compared to what Seattle was and wasn't able to do at the bottom of their order?
I think especially last night, you think, I guess it was, I think it was in the top of the 3rd against Shane Bieber. There were a couple of guys on base, and the Mariners decided to bunt with J.P. Crawford, who had hit Shane Bieber really well in his career, to set up 8 and 9, and 8 and 9 couldn't deliver. And the Blue Jays 7, 8, 9 hitters, think about the bottom of the 7th last night. Addison Barger draws a leadoff walk. Kiner-Falefa rips a single. Jimenez gets a bunt down, and then that turns the order over for George Springer, and he delivers with the 3-run homer. And who knows what happens if J.P. Crawford is allowed to swing in that situation instead of giving up an out for your 2 worst hitters on your team and hoping that they're going to be able to deliver, and they weren't. And the Blue Jays' bottom of the order hitters and guys who were not expected necessarily to do a ton. I mentioned Jimenez with the 2 home runs in Seattle, and Kiner-Falefa hit .333 in this series and had a couple of leadoff doubles that Jimenez ended up cashing in a couple of times with 2-run homers. Had to hit last night. The bottom of the order has been a big catalyst for the Blue Jays really throughout the season, no matter who it's been in those 7, 8, or 9 spots, to allow the likes of Springer and Bichette, when he's been healthy, and Guerrero to come up time after time in important spots with runners in scoring position or runners on base, and to be able to deliver hits that score 1 or 2 or 3 like we saw last night. So you have to really give them a lot of credit, because that's what you need at this time of the year is those types of contributions from players who maybe aren't expected to do a ton. And that's what can sometimes be the difference in a razor thin margin like this series that was the ALCS.
You know, one of the coolest things about playoff baseball, especially Game 7, is that everyone is available. As a Royals fan, I was in the Kauffman Stadium for Game 7 of the 2014 World Series, and I'll always remember the horror when we looked into the bullpen and Tim Lincecum was up, and Timmy Smoke was at sort of the end at that point, and he wasn't a starter anymore. You're like, okay, well, maybe he can come in, and then all of a sudden it changes. And Madison Bumgarner, who had just pitched Game 6, came out and took them out in the last 3 innings. And we got some of that last night. I mean, it was a classic. You have those incredible young pitchers in Seattle. George Kirby, Brian Wu looked amazing. I'm sure they might regret maybe taking him out. And then on the Jays side of things, Kevin Gausman, Chris Bassett for the first time in the playoffs. And then Jeff Hoffman, much maligned guy, was a gas can at times this year, putting an exclamation point on the best 2 days of the season that he certainly had by striking out the side. I mean, it had a little everything. I mean, a ton of star power, everyone on deck, and it took everyone's contribution for the Jays to get that win.
Yeah, that's what Game 7 is usually about in October, is it's just a kitchen sink scenario where you're just hoping that you push all of the right buttons. And Kevin Gausman walked a couple of guys, got a big double play off the bat of Julio Rodriguez, who was having a really good night up until that point. And then Chris Bassett comes in the 8th and starts things off with 95. And I couldn't tell you the last time I saw 95 on the radar gun from Chris Bassett. And maybe there's something there moving forward into the World Series where maybe he condenses his pitch mix from 7 pitches to 4, and he can dial up the velocity a little bit and be somebody that you can really go to as a reliever for 6 or 7 or potentially 8 or 9 outs. And then Jeff Hoffman threw 35 pitches, and I had some people saying, why did they bring him out for the top of the 9th in Game 6? Why not have him ready with less of a workload? He threw 35 pitches, was really good in Game 6. And I just said, look, it's Game 7. There's going to be some fatigue, certainly at this stage of the season after throwing 35 pitches. But it's Game 7 at home. There's going to be an extra added sense of adrenaline if he is called upon to pitch. And we saw him arguably at his very best. He strikes out the side, made Rodriguez look not very good in the final at bat there, and put any demons behind him. He's been really good for the most part in October. And you talk about 7 strikeouts in 3 innings, 7 of your 9 outs in Game 6 and 7, with your back against the wall facing elimination when you absolutely had to have it. You needed him to be at his absolute best, and he was. And that's got to, I imagine, feel really good for a pitcher who struggled mightily a number of times this year.
There's no greater spotlight for a major league manager than the bright lights of the World Series, a championship series, and kind of had it all from John Schneider. I mean, I joke with some friends on Friday night after the infamous Brendan Little incident where he came in and the game got blown up, that every group chat in Canada of people that were dialed into the Jays were freaking out when Little came into the game. I mean, this was something, it was their worst fear, and it all sort of imploded. So Schneider, I mean, many people said that he was managing for his job over these last couple of games. Now that we can look back, that moment notwithstanding, how would you evaluate the work of John Schneider through the 7-game series against Seattle?
Yeah, I think that was obviously a major mistake and misstep, and there's no getting around that. And it would have been tough to come back from that. Like, I don't think he was losing his job over that. I understand the kind of fury and anger over it. I was angry over it.
There's a lot of hot takes.
Yeah, it was a bad decision, but I thought that the strategy and some of the decision making over the final two games was strong. I thought that they pulled Bieber at the right time. They used kind of the right guys in the right spots out of the bullpen in game 7. And I thought game 6 was also very well managed in terms of when to pull Savage, maybe to let him go longer than you were thinking, maybe before that game started. And I think that game 7 was more about Dan Wilson, the Mariners manager, making a mistake in a big spot. Bizzardo's been good, but Wu had made Springer look really bad in the previous at bat. And if you're not going to go with Wu in that situation, top of the order coming up, why aren't you going to Munoz, who has the strikeout ability and hasn't really thrown a ton in the series up until that point? I understand Bizzardo had been good, but that to me was a real misstep and a miscalculation. And those can sometimes, those are the difference in a really close series. The right or wrong button being pushed in terms of a pinch hitter or a bullpen deployment can be the difference between winning and losing. And it almost was the difference for the Blue Jays, but it, in a lot of ways, ultimately was the difference in terms of winning or losing for Seattle.
Josh Goldberg's with us, Blue Jays Nation. Listen, I want to talk World Series and look ahead to the weekend, but before that, just what was it like being in the building? Take us through getting there, the vibes in and around it with so much on the line, and the roller coaster of a game that it was. Because, I mean, listen, credit to George Kirby and Wu. I mean, the Jays did not have a lot going in their first 6 times up at the plate.
No, it's always the playoffs are interesting because, the game ops are similar. It's not quite as noticeable in terms of like the between pitches sounds and music and stuff. There's still some of it, probably more of it than I personally would like. But as the game wore on and there was not much cooking offensively, it was getting quieter and quieter, no question about it. And the crazy thing is all it takes is a little bit of a spark, and it's a good crowd. It's always a good crowd in big games. And they, for the most part, understand the kind of beats and rhythms of momentum and when to kind of throttle it up and bring that noise and energy. And with 2 on and Springer coming up, there was a sense and kind of a buzz that this was potentially the moment. And if it didn't go according to script, it might be kind of lights out. And obviously the hit and the home run kind of blows the lid off. And the crowd, like I was at a bunch of games in the series, and the crowd has just been really solid when the Blue Jays have given the fans something to get excited about. The crowd has been really good, and I would expect it to be almost at another level for the World Series, first time in 32 years. Roof closed, it's really loud in there, and I would expect it's going to be quite something come Friday night.
You know what? This team is special, and it is unique. And we heard from Vladdy and a number of players how much they fed off the energy of that fan base. I don't think it's a stretch to say that the support that this team gets has certainly helped them throughout the season and helped them in some of the biggest moments. Credit to them for stepping up in those moments as opposed to shriveling, like, frankly, previous Blue Jays teams had in the postseason, falling way short of their original goals with a lot of talent in the lineup.
Yeah, and this was one of the best home teams in baseball all year long, and it was not a coincidence that they performed in the big spots at home. Yeah, the first 2 games of the series did not go according to script, and it would have been really tough if the lasting image of Roger Center Blue Jays baseball for 2025 was getting the brakes beaten off in game 2. But credit to them, they battled and brought the series back. And as was the case many times when they were back against the wall, they seem to always find their best. And I do think that the home crowd really provides an added layer for them that might be the difference in making a 50-50 proposition, a 51-49 or a 52-48, just swinging it that little bit. And I would hope it's going to be very big against the Dodgers, because the prospect, like, the talent disparity is there. Like, the Dodgers have a splashier roster and on the whole more talent. I don't think there's any doubting that. Having home field advantage thanks to winning one game against the Dodgers in Los Angeles, Mason Fluharty, obviously the Ohtani strikeout there was really the difference between not having home field advantage in this situation. So hopefully that ends up being maybe something that swings the tide in the Blue Jays' favor, because they're going to need to be rock solid and hope that they can do enough to get to the Dodgers pitching staff if they want to come out victorious here and kind of flip the script and be the underdog and find a way to win here.
Josh, it's funny you bring up that game in LA, because I was talking with some friends afterwards that moment in the ninth inning in LA, where they lost the first two games, seemed to be a moment like Fluharty, of all people, coming out and striking out back-to-back Mookie Betts and Ohtani with the bases loaded. It kind of felt like at that point, like it was just another example of, hey, maybe this team is different than the other ones that had been in the past. And then as you break it down, the fact that the Jays finished with 94 wins and the Dodgers had 93, and for games 1 and 2 and 6 and 7 will be in Toronto of this series. It's hard not to go back and look at that game, because if you recall, they'd been playing really well. They were in a bit of they lost the 2 games in a row, and I think a couple going into that series. And that game seemed to sort of get them set again and keep on that push for first place in the AL East after they passed the Yankees.
Yeah, I believe the Dodgers had won the first 2 games of that series, and you're looking down the barrel potentially of a sweep and, kind of a deflating performance against the defending World Series champions, and kind of trying to measure yourself up against them. And they found a way. That's kind of the theme of the conversation we're having, is that they've always found a way. Time after time, they just don't really give in when the odds or the matchup or any data might indicate that it's not necessarily looking all that great. They always seem to find a way. And it would be really fitting for this season, where they've been counted out. They were counted out before the season. They were counted out going into the Yankees series, counted out down the stretch when it looked like they were going to lose the division, counted out when they went down 2-0, counted out after Game 5 against Seattle, and are going to be counted out and picked. I don't think it's going to be a complete whitewash, but I would expect 75% of people are probably going to be picking the Dodgers, if not more, counted out in a lot of ways. Again, it would be really fitting if the final chapter was beating the team that everyone says is ruining baseball to win the World Series.
And of course, Ohtani doing historic things. Former Jay for 20 minutes, Shohei Ohtani, of course. Hey, the one guy that hasn't contributed so far is Bo Bichette. And Bo was interviewed after the game last night and said, I'm ready. How is this going to work? Is IKF out if Bo's in? Give us a little thoughts on how the roster might look and where they might play Bo. I guess if he's 100%, he'll go in and play as normal, but how's that all going to work? And who's off? Because as we said before, it seems like literally everyone's had a bit of a hand in this.
It's going to be interesting. I think it'll be Loperfido kind of sliding off, because he replaced Santander and just hasn't really had any role. I just think you want IKF's versatility defensively. And if Bo, for whatever reason, is on the roster, but then just doesn't quite look right, and you're not necessarily confident in terms of how much you can put on his plate, I think it would be good to have IKF on the roster. But if Bo is healthy enough to play shortstop, I think that's where he's going to play, because I think that the roster configuration is cleaner when he's at shortstop, and then you move Jimenez over to second base, and then you kind of figure out how to fit in Clement and Barger. Springer will have to play in an outfield spot. What does that do for Lucas? It's not clean, no question. And I have seen some why mess with what's gotten you to this point. And I suppose I get that to a point. But we're talking about Bo Bichette here and one of the best pure hitters in baseball. And with that pitching staff staring down at you with whatever order, Snell, Yamamoto, Glasnow, Ohtani, I want Bo Bichette's bat in the lineup if at all possible. And whether that's as a shortstop or as a DH, whatever role you see fit, if he's healthy enough to play, I want him in there in game one to see how he looks. And if it's doesn't go great, maybe you reassess. But if he's healthy enough, he's in my lineup for game one, because I just think you need that talent in the lineup against the arms that are going to be coming against you.
Hey, Josh, there's 3 days off in between. Game one's going to go Friday night, game two on Saturday before a day off and heading back to LA. How do you see the starting rotation being set for the World Series?
It's going to be interesting because obviously you won't see Bieber. I doubt you'll see Gausman after throwing a couple last night. I guess it's possible, but I would be surprised. My guess is it's either Trey Savage or Max Scherzer. If I had to really think about it, Savage pitched Sunday, so he'd be on 4 days rest. I could see a scenario though in which it's Max Scherzer starting game one,
Max
and then
against
Savage.
The Dodgers is pretty juicy.
For sure it is. And he was good, and he deserves another start after what he did in Seattle. So that would be how I would lean right now, is Scherzer game one, Savage game two, then probably Gausman game three, and then Bieber you go back to for game four, and then you figure out where you're at from there. But that's how I kind of see it as of now.
Josh, thanks so much for doing this. I'm so fired up. We're going to have another visit talking World Series with the Jays and the Dodgers. It's still sinking in, I think, to a lot of people, myself included, but that was a magical night last night. Just before we go, what was the scene outside the building when you left the game last night?
Wild, you would expect. I'll always say the same thing kind of happened in 2019 when the Raptors won the NBA title that year. When there's like a big moment in and around a venue, the fans in the city always kind of rise to the occasion. So hopefully we can get one more kind of push this over the finish line, because if they were to win the World Series, whether it's in Los Angeles or in Toronto, it would be the foundation of the city would shift in that celebration. It would be wild.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're let's set a date for next week. Can't wait to do this again and see what happens when they get going on the weekend. Thanks so much for doing this, Josh, as always.
Of course, us. Enjoyed it. Talk to you
Folks,
soon.
At Jay Goldberg 12 on X, Blue Jays Nation, for his work. And I can't wait, as I mentioned, to talk to Josh next week. Jays, Dodgers, World Series. Let's go. Of course, the Jets had a big win last night. And while Josh was in the building in the Dome, our pal Kevin Sawyer was in the Saddle Dome last night. He's going to join us in just a second. Do want to thank our friends at Princess Auto for their great support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Of course, Princess Auto, headquartered and founded right here in Winnipeg. And, of course, sponsoring the home of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and the home of the Grey Cup, Princess Auto Stadium. Princess Auto is where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. So pop by and see them, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, Brandon, or shop online 24/7, 365 over at princessauto.com. A little later on today, I'll be dropping my latest Chud's Power Sports Power Poll with the top 5 teams in the National Hockey League. You never know who might end up on that list right now after winning their 5th straight. Of course, Chud's Power Sports, serving the Manitoba community for over 80 years in Gimli. You can find them at the corner of Highway 8 and 231, is the true power sports superstore in Manitoba, with the greatest selection on ATVs, UTVs, boats, snowmobiles, RVs, ice houses, street bikes, dirt bikes, tractors, and things like Argos and Sasquatch. Of course, right now, the snow will be flying soon, and with snowmobile season lurking around the corner, there's scream-worthy savings right now on Polaris and Arctic Cat sleds. before the snow creeps in. So pop down, see our pal, the Derminator, and the wonderful staff at Chud's Power Sports. You can also check them out online at chudspowersports.com. And for all of those of you that love great deals, check out truenorthparts.ca for great clearance deals on gear, accessories, and so much more. Stick around for the Power Poll a little later on today. And of course, our friends at Manitoba Battery have some batteries up at Chud's Power Sports for folks in the Gimli area. Manitoba Battery is your local option for the biggest and best selection of batteries for literally everything at the best prices in town. Period. Beating the pants off the big box stores. So not only will you get the lowest price on the battery that you need for the upcoming winter for your car or truck, you'll also be shopping local, supporting local, and getting the best services. Manitoba Battery will deliver those batteries to you as well, anywhere inside the perimeter of Winnipeg. For all your battery needs, 2 locations, Logan Avenue, Dovercourt Drive, holler at them or order online today at manitobabattery.com. All right, let's welcome in our pal Kevin Sawyer, who was working hard last night following the Winnipeg Jets, and I saw getting the odd update from fans about the Blue Jays game last night. Kev, that must have been quite the scene in Calgary, with people obviously watching a big game between the Flames and Jets, and at the same time living and dying with every pitch on probably about 5,000 phones throughout the arena.
Yeah, it was something. Like I think everybody was taken aback. I mean, the buzz in the building was, it was hard to, I mean, everybody wants to be professional, and the players, of course, and the benches and the coaches, but you look over and everybody's looking up the top on the screen to kind of see the highlights. But I was wondering, like, how many fans are going to be in their seats watching hockey and watching their phones? It was almost everybody. So, I mean, I had this couple you saw on our broadcast who were keeping me up to date. They were awesome, and they were flipping their phone every commercial break. So I was doing a little double duty as well. It was unique to be a part of.
Listen, just before we dive into the actual hockey game that everyone was there to see, tell us about the moment, because I think a lot of people were maybe out watching the Jays and the Jets on at the same time. Maybe they had the sound on the Blue Jays game. What was it like in the building, like after the home run and the win? I mean, it seemed like they actually legitimately had to basically stop the game and just let it breathe.
It felt like a playoff game, an NHL playoff game. It was, I mean, it wasn't packed in the Saddle Dome. I mean, it was decent, but it exploded. It absolutely exploded. And that's what was so unique about it, because the game was a bit of a snoozer, to be honest with you, up to a certain point of the game between Calgary, the Flames, and the Jets. So all of a sudden you've got this energy in the building. It was special. And I mean, you kind of felt that Canadian pride. And I mean, the moment that they had won the game, we had just come out of break, kind of caught me off guard, to be honest with you, because it happened so fast. And they played the song, the Blue Jays song, forever. The banner was wrapping around the rink with the Blue Jays. So it was unique. I mean, and I like the fact that Logan, Stanley, Scott Arniel after the game, I mean, they didn't hide from the fact that they were kind of plugged into it a little bit. I mean, they're focusing on the game, but it's impossible to not feel pride, and the excitement was awesome.
Yeah, you know what? I'm not sure. You probably know better than anyone, just traveling with the team. Are there a few guys in that room that are like big-time Jays fans that were quite elated that not only they had a big 2 points in Calgary, but the Jays were going to the World Series after?
I wish I could give you names of guys. I mean, like, there's so many guys, you know, athletes are fans of sports. I don't know who the Jays fans are. I know that we have one guy on our staff, Jamie Thomas, who's a Dodgers fan. So, I mean, I don't want to throw him out. So I won't mention. Oh, did I?
Jamie, listen, that guy cheers for the house in blackjack. Like, come on.
Yeah, but, lots of excitement. The boys were fired up on the bus and the plane after.
Well, let's get to the game. And I mean, listen, we can kind of get to the overall play and how the Jets did it. But I mean, what a moment. Not only did the team need a goal, trailing 1-0 as the clock was winding down, but Jonathan Toews, after playing so well, getting chances, setting up a couple in the last game, gets his first in his return to the National Hockey League. A huge moment for an all-time NHL star, and a massive moment for this Winnipeg Jets franchise.
I know that I speak for Dan Robertson as well. I mean, it's a goal in the regular season, but it was a big goal. But honored to be a part of it, to be honest with you. When you know the man and what he's gone through to get back to being able to play in the National Hockey League. It was just a matter of time. I mean, he could have easily had a couple earlier. I don't get the sense that it was rattling him. I don't think that very much will rattle Jonathan, to be honest with you, considering what he's gone through. But yeah, I mean, it was a big goal for the team. And listen, when you listen to him talk or you talk to him, he's like a coach to himself, where he knows, like, he'll make comments about, like, I knew I was working too hard. I was pushing myself out of position because I was overworking. Or he knows, okay, when you're not getting bounces, go to the net and make simple plays, simplify. He does all those things, and it was just a matter of time. So thankful and so honored to be a part of that, to be in the building, to see him get his first as a Jet. It was awesome.
I mean, we're 6 games in, and I try not to get, I mean, this was certainly the case last week after the New York Islander game, where he was second in ice time and he looked so good. And I mean, essentially the consensus was we were hoping at some point we might see a Jonathan Toews that could help a team the way he is right now during this season. I don't know whether it's time to maybe recalibrate what this player might be able to, but put it this way, if you set very low expectations for Jonathan Toews this year, he didn't. And it's very clear right now, Kevin, that he's still getting into the groove. And it's exciting from a Jet fan perspective of what he and the team might be capable of as he continues to get more comfortable in his return.
What I'm really excited about here is, if you listen to his interview with Elliot Friedman on Sportsnet, it was awesome. It was awesome. And I mean, I think that everybody, no matter what, we all have our own challenges in life. I mean, I think that you kind of got a glimpse of the person versus the player. And Jonathan is, in his career up to this point, has kind of maybe only let people see the professionalism in him, where there was some vulnerability in that interview and in his honesty. So I agree with you where he has high expectations, and I don't think that'll ever go away. But I also think that there might be another level of forgiveness where, you know what, if I'm not excellent or if I'm just okay, that's okay. And I can tell you from my own personal experiences, it was then when I started to really, it was that attitude for me where that's when I made it in the NHL full time. And I'm so sorry to put myself in the same sentence with Jonathan Toews. Of course, it's a totally different category, but there's something about demanding a lot from yourself, but also being able to forgive yourself so that you continue down the path. I'm really curious to see how and where Jonathan can take this kind of new journey with a bit of a new attitude. I watch him closely between the benches, at practice, in the room, etc. And he's still business and he's still professional beyond. But at the same time, you get the sense that there's a lightheartedness in him, and he's enjoying this process. I'll just say this as well. I cannot wait to see the IQ of Cole Perfetti and Jonathan Toews collaborate. I think it's going to be special.
Yeah, well, and that is kind of one of the things that I think, is exciting for Jet fans as well in the middle of this 5-game winning streak, is that I think we'd all agree, there's a whole nother level or two that this team can get to, particularly when you talk about the guys that are out of the lineup right now. But I mean, I'll give credit to a lot of the players sort of in that bottom 6 that have stepped up during this time that, are helping this team win games. And, that level of competition, knowing that players are coming back, is going to drive every single player to be at their best, because that's really what it's going to take to stay in a lineup that's deep, Kevin.
Isn't that exciting? That's such an exciting part. Scott Arniel isn't happy. He said he isn't happy, but I got a feeling like this coaching staff, management, ownership would be looking at this saying, this is not the worst thing that's ever happened. Like, where injuries to, not just injuries, but injuries to key guys, big pieces of the fiber of this team. So you talk depth. Every team that has it always wants to praise it, but you never really know until you use it. And this is a huge feather in the cap of Scott Arniel's systems that he created when Rick Bowness was here, because although it takes individuals to score and to defend, and everybody has to do their part, you're seeing systematically how strong Scott Arniel's hockey mind is, because you can get a young guy, Parker Ford, come in, or you've got a Cole Koepke that it was kind of like a fringe player in Boston, or come in. And now this is where guys come to make careers because you're part of something it's just a well-oiled machine. And I'll tell you, the Jets have allowed 8 goals now in their last 5 games. And they're still not playing anywhere near, well, that's not fair. They're playing good hockey, but they've got a long way to go to get to where I know they feel really stable with their systems. There's still holes in their systems. Hellebuck's there when they need to be, or they know how to recover for each other. And this adversity early is, I love it. It couldn't come, if it's going to come, it couldn't have come at a better time, in my opinion.
Well, and as we mentioned, Perfetti will come back and that'll bump somebody. And what's interesting right now is, I'll get your take on this. This version of the fourth line, with Morgan Barron in the middle and Koepke and, usually Pearson or one of the younger guys that they put in there. We had a long conversation with some buddies and we were talking about the best fourth lines that the Jets have put out. And obviously you get back to, where this team was after the deadline in and around 2018, where you had Brian Little basically playing fourth line center, which obviously was a real luxury. But I'll tell you what, Kevin, starting, if you want to go bottom up, the foundation that Barron line is setting right now, night in and night out, not to mention what they're doing on the PK, has been something that coaches dream of, frankly.
There's 9 forwards by my count, with Parker Ford as part of that are part of the penalty kill. It's a huge part of a team. It's a huge part of guys that I say wear 2 hats, double duty, whatever you want to call it, that play in the bottom 6 that have a second role. So that's a huge thing. What I don't know is who the heck is going to sit out when Adam Lowry comes back and Cole Perfetti comes back. Now, you've probably got Vladimir Nemestikov on the wing on the fourth line. Now you're wondering, Cole Koepke's done such a great job, and I know that the Jets are really enjoying the extra size and the beef on the bottom on that fourth line. Is it going to be a rotating cat? What a great problem to have. But you're going to have legitimate NHL players, legitimate ones, sitting out and watching from the stands if this team gets healthy. On top of that, Nyquist, he hasn't come close to finding his game yet, in my opinion. And yet there's lots there to be, to like. But, clearly he's going to have to find ways to score. But if he doesn't, you got Pearson that's got NHL pedigree that can play top sale. I can go on and on about different options that Scott Arniel has. I don't know what this lineup's going to look like for the first time in years. I think it's a great thing.
Well, it's certainly going to give us lots to talk about on Winnipeg Sports Talk every day when we're opining about the Jets and talking to everybody in the chat. And it's, they're fun conversations to have. You mentioned special teams, and I'll just get your thoughts on both. The PK right out of the gate has been absolutely brilliant. And for my money, both power play units have been really good. Listen, Alex Iafallo had 8 shots on goal last night, and he is such a dog. There is an argument that he's a perfect fit and complement to the guys on that group right now. And I'll tell you what, we have seen a lot of power play time for the second unit. It's not just one goes out for 140 and these guys get crumbs at the end. I wouldn't be surprised if they maybe see Perfetti moving into the second unit to try to even make that one more, because there is an element of it ain't broke, don't fix it with what AI is doing along with the top 4 on the PP.
Agreed. And that would not have been something we would have talked about to start the season.
No way.
It was clear that Perfetti he's taken the spot of Nikolai Ehlers on the top power play unit. But I think kind of back to what the coaching staff is learning here. They're learning about 4 new forwards, 5 with Parker Ford or Lambert or some of those young guys if they're in. There's a learning process here for everybody. The players are getting used to this team and their systems. The team is getting used to the new players and maybe what they can bring. And Morgan Barron, throw him in, because to me, he feels like a new addition in a way. All due respect, he was good last year. But I think that Dylan Samberg last year and the jump that he took in his identity, I think that Morgan Barron is poised to do kind of the same things. But to the power play, it's funny. Alex Iafallo came onto the media bus after the game last night just to grab his bag from the commute to the hotel, and I says, "Couldn't get 10 shots, hey, you bum, only 8." And he laughed. And but he's so humble, and it's not like he's looking for cookies. He just plays his game. He's always in the right spot. So, you know what? Taking him off that top unit, he's such a dog. He's so useful in so many ways. I think that's what more of the Jets want. Everything that they're going to do, Huss, throughout this regular season is to get back to what they were, but add to it. And the only way you can add to what they did last year is to play beefier, to play harder, to learn to score from those tight spaces, playoffs. And Iafallo is one of the guys that you just have to have in the trenches. So you're right. I think it's a good spot for him.
Just while we're on the power play, it really has stood out to me how effective Jonathan Toews is right now on the power play. I mean, the vision and the passing that he has right now, and we've seen it sometimes at 5-on-5, but part of the reason why I think that PP2 unit has been out there as long as they have been is that he has become a huge part of a unit that's been able to really control their time and create chances in that other team zone to give Scott Arniel kind of a 1-2 punch.
As this season settles in, and just kind of through the lens of an analyst for me, you're trying to see everything, and sometimes you miss a lot. And as I settle and kind of watch more individuals as the game is flying by, I'm noticing more things about Jonathan Toews and learning about him. And so when he says sometimes I was working too hard, I think I understand exactly what he means, because there's times where he'll get the puck slow down and he'll draw people to him. And he has that sense of where just to place the puck to a spot, because he understands what everybody else on the ice is trying to do. And so that he plays to that. He puts pucks, little subtle little plays, little chips, little backhand passes, the no looks that extend time. And they've been hemmed in defensively, and they're on the ice a couple of times throughout this course of the year. That's going to happen. It's part of growth, but they spend a lot of time in the attacking zone, and a lot of it goes through the hands of Jonathan Toews. And it's not fancy. It really wasn't fancy before when he was even in his prime, but it's just subtle and like kind of back to that Perfetti thing. When those guys get together, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but I just think that the level of thinking, I think it's be fun to watch. I think that they're going to spend a lot of time in the attack zone.
Listen, I can't wait. Speaking of fun to watch, the Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor show that has been unleashed on the National Hockey League this year has been something else. Once again, last night, those two front and center with the winning goal late in the game, coming off Mark's franchise record point, which was an absolute rocket one-timer off, guess who, a pass from Kyle Connor. It seems like both of these players, Kevin, have come into the season with an incredible focus to basically pick up right where they left off last season. But I also do wonder about the upcoming Olympic Games, how big of a part that is, especially for Mark, who desperately wants to make that team after being overlooked last year. And Kyle Connor, who, of course, made the team last year, but was incredibly put in the press box for the gold medal game. Just thoughts on the other things that are driving both of these guys and what we're seeing from them night in and night out.
Well, if you were to ask them, I suspect that they would say this is all about the Winnipeg Jets. And I know that's true. I mean, these guys now, I think that they've settled in knowing now we get to hang out together for the next 6 years at least. So I think that there's something to that. There's no doubt. I also think that these two men have the deep, deep desire to win a Stanley Cup. I think that's in their frontal. That's first and foremost. But not for a second would I believe that they're not motivated. I mean, to represent your country and to make those teams and to be a factor, that's always going to be extra motivation. I felt like it was for Mark when he didn't make Team Canada last year, and kind of the way that he went on a tear when he wasn't chosen.
Oh, yeah, it was the FU tour.
It was the FU tour. And I don't think that, I just think that Mark and Kyle have matured to a point where they're like, I'm gonna add that versus make that what my motivation is. So they've got a lot. I mean, these guys are in their prime and they've got a lot of different things that will motivate them. And think how scary this is. Gabe Vilardi hasn't found his game yet. There's things there to like, but he hasn't found his game yet. And those two are still dominating. If I've got time, I want to share with you a conversation I had with Mark Scheifele about two of the last 3 goals that he scored. The first one was in Philadelphia against Paterson, and I was on the at ice level, and it was the absolute perfect line of sight. I was standing here, I was looking at the stick with the puck on Scheifele's stick, and I could see Paterson taking the strong side away. He was given the weak side. There was nothing to shoot at. So in my brain, I just thought, okay, puck's going wide. Who's there for the rebound? Scheif kind of turned his body, represented that he was shooting far, and the puck came off his stick, and it stunned me. And I told him this. I go, it surprised me that you shot. There was nothing to shoot at. And then Paterson goes down, and all of a sudden daylight opened. And I said, it surprised me. Be sure it surprised Paterson. I go, you did that on purpose. You knew that he was going to go down and that was going to open up that 7-hole. And he smiled and he goes, I want the other goaltender to think that they know what I'm going to do, and I do the opposite. It's a level of brilliance. And then we took it to his goal to get the record. And that one-timer from Connor, the way he went top corner, and I said, I know you're a golfer. I go, it was like a cut shot, Scheif, like where you turn your body, you brought your hands through fast, but the puck came off your stick fast. And he goes, if I would have tried to scoop that and throw it, it would have waffled. He goes, so it was a cut shot. And he talked about the details of how he thinks these things, but it's more instinctual. And it is brilliant. I'm so lucky. We're all so lucky to witness it, because those are two goals that most guys wouldn't have put in the back of the net. It was amazing.
I mean, it's fun to watch right now. And listen, they're getting contributions from a lot of guys, but at the end of the day, if you're going to be a top team, your top players need to lead the way. And that's exactly what's happening right now. We'd be remiss to not mention Mr. Hellebuck, the performance that he put forth last night, and really his level of play throughout the season, starting off with the night where he let in 5, but it could have been maybe double than that against Dallas if he didn't keep the team in the game.
I totally agree. And it was neat last night to watch kind of like the Vezina Trophy king, and then the guy that's going to be in the conversation for a Vezina eventually with Dustin Wolf. They were going back and forth, and it was a very, very much a goaltender's game. Both of them had to be good to keep that scoreless for as long as it was. Just witnessing, I get a kick out of this. I really do. I get a kick out of the fact that things aren't like, it wasn't perfect hockey from Winnipeg. I thought Calgary played really well considering, the struggles they've had. But when things aren't going perfect, you're not scoring easy, or you break down a couple of times, there's just no panic. You can sense it in the eyes of the players on the bench to my right, or Hellebuck just says, okay, this is when they need me and I'm here. And that breeds a ton of confidence. But what's he stopped now? 62 of his last 64. The team's given up 8 in their last 5. And the best thing about that is they're playing some decent teams, and they're still not they haven't hit their power band. They're going to get better here. Their structure is still being kind of tweaked to get back to true form.
You know what, Kev? I'm going to fire off the power poll, just kind of a fun top 5 right now. And, you look around the league, and one thing that certainly hasn't changed is the tough neighborhood that the Jets are living in right now. Just thoughts on the landscape of the Central right now, with a lot of the teams we expected to be good being good, and now some other teams kind of trying to push into the conversation when it comes to who's going to be standing at the end of 82.
Yeah, I mean, I think that last year we all expected the Central to be hostile territory, and of course Nashville, Minnesota. Now Utah is in the conversation, and this is a team that's on the rise, and they've got a ton of buy-in there. I know that they believe in their coach. They love the new city, the new ownership. You're starting to see some results there, so they're going to push. Dallas has a little stumbles here and there, but I mean, Dallas is going to be a powerhouse of this league. There's no doubt about that. And Colorado's doing exactly what we expect to see. So I think it's what you want. If you're a contender like the Jets are, I think that you want to be battle tested and you win your division and you've set yourself up. But this year is not going to be, not that last year was easy, but I do think that Nashville is going to find their way. I think that they learned some devastating lessons last year. Minnesota, the jury's still out for me how good they could be, but that's always a tough rival. The Central to me is the strongest division in this league, and that, I mean, if you're not on your game, you're going to be in trouble. And I think it forces you to, especially good teams, you always want to find ways to push, find ways to be like stay sharp when, I'm not going to say that the game comes easy, but last year, I mean, they won a heck of a lot of hockey, and you want to push yourself. The Central, automatic push. It's going to keep you sharp.
Well, and listen, I mean, you got teams like St. Louis who, play, as close to a playoff style in the regular season. I mean, just with how physical they are and rough. I mean, Dallas obviously can beat you in a bunch of different ways. Colorado's very unique. But then, I mean, the Chicago Blackhawks with their young talent are showing some signs of life. And I mean, right now, 6 points, which is what Dallas and St. Louis have you at the bottom of the division. Like, it's pretty hard to imagine a scenario right now, and albeit it's very early, that we don't see 5 teams from the Central in the playoffs once again, considering the kind of seeming disparity between the Central and the Pacific.
Agreed. And in saying that, I mean, you talk about Chicago and good for them. The league changes, that kind of American Thanksgiving and then trade deadline. And it's going to take 2 giant leaps before we get to, the third part of the season. So that's where, you kind of separate a little bit. So, can Utah kind of hang? Can Minnesota can in Chicago. Yeah, I'm not convinced yet. It's early, but I mean, hey, these guys, there's one thing about a team that kind of got embarrassed, or Chicago was, they're not expected to be good, but I mean, you get fatigued from chasing all the time and from losing all the time. And I think Utah's there. I think that they're a highly motivated team. I'm interested too. I think that there's this new level of rivalry with St. Louis. I mean, I think that the Winnipeg Jets are going to bring the best out in St. Louis when they play each other. I mean, they certainly know the template to play Winnipeg, and that's going to bring out the best in Mark Scheifele. He knows what's coming, and that's why they went to beef up as well. So, yeah, it's going to be tough. I'm fired up about the Central Division this year. I think it's going to be a little bit tougher than last.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's fun. I mean, it makes it that much more challenging to get to where you want to be, but that can also make you a better team and more ready for it, as well as what they've gone through for the last few years. Hey, before we go, a couple days off for the club. We got Seattle on Thursday, I should say, and then the Calgary Flames backs with their, another game just 4 days apart. Just quick thoughts on Calgary and, the challenge that the Jets are going to have going up against them on the second end of back-to-backs against a team certainly that came in. It seems like they've got something to prove to themselves and the fans. I'm sure you heard Kevin Bieksa call out Sharon Govich, who was benched last night for the game. There's a lot going on for a team that really made their mark last year, Kevin, as sort of a lunch bucket team that worked so hard they played far ahead of what people thought they were on paper.
They played a good hockey game last night. They really did. They didn't get very many bounces. They could have just as easily won that hockey game. There's no doubt. So a lot of respect there. I heard the response or the comments from Bieksa, and I'll tell you this. He went after the player, and I totally agree. I mean, that is what it is. And the compete level, it's early. I mean, he's not a North American born and raised player. So, I mean, if you're going to pin a culture on a player or a player's or a game, you better be right. And I totally disagree with Bieksa's assessment of culture. I totally agree with his assessment of the play from Sharon Govich and other individuals. But I'll tell you what, I know Ryan Huska well. We were old teammates. We grew up in the same town, and I know that there's a ton of buy-in from the players in that locker room. I thought they responded exactly how they should have. I'll say this, so if I was Ryan Huska, I would have played Sharon Govich, just because you don't want the perception that Hockey Night is dictating.
Yeah, good point.
You know what I mean? I would have played him, and I would have said, you better get your ass in gear here and show people, because you deserved what they said. And he did, although that's harsh. But I don't agree with the culture comments. It's too early to be throwing that around. It's 6 games into a season of a team that was tied for a playoff spot and lost on regulation wins last year. So they got a good group. I thought that, by the way, that Uyghur addressed the media, and I thought he did a really nice.
I heard that. That was leadership.
That was leadership. And that's to me is what that team's kind of all about, is they care about each other. They're going to spread it around, good or bad. So that you're right about that and then the Jets go on that 13-day road trip and finish it in Calgary. So they see a lot of the Calgary Flames, and Ryan Huska has a lot of pride, and I know he's got a lot of belief from his general manager, ownership in that room. So it's not going to be an easy out. They're a good hockey team that's just not even, they're just off to a terrible start, but they're going to get better.
Hey, you know what? I promised a couple people I'd ask you about this guy. We kind of got talking about a bunch of others, but got to feel good for this run that Logan Stanley's had, making the most of his opportunity, playing with Neil Pionk. He's scored twice, stepped up against some big dudes so far this year, like McCarron on Saturday night. And, what the Stanley chants throughout the building on Saturday night. I mean, just for a player that is on the bubble, I mean, a guy that's still yet to be an established lock everyday NHLer, how can a few good things going your way at the beginning of a season help kind of push you to that being more the norm than something that happens every now and then?
Yeah, let me kind of take this in a bit of a different direction. So Hayden Fleury was on our air last night, and I just asked him about being at home, that kind of being in front of your family, and he got a little emotional. And none of us saw it coming, but there's some personal problems with his grandfather, which we hope everything is okay. But he got emotional. It reminded me about all the stresses, the pressures, all the things that are going on behind the scenes. I remember playing. I mean, you've got a wife, you've got kids, your parents, and you're all the while trying to get yourself ready to play physically, mentally. Guys, I mean, it's these guys are privileged. They make a lot of money, and there's no reason for us to go around feeling sorry for them. But there's so much going on mentally in their lives. And so that brings me to Logan Stanley, where, he's been through a lot of ups and downs, probably more downs than ups. And I like Logan a lot, and I've talked to Stan throughout the years. And you see him sitting in his stall, and maybe he gets booed on certain plays or certain games. And we chat about life, and I says, hey, keep her going. He goes, man, I'm going to try. And you can feel his lack of confidence, but he's always found a way to get himself to keep pushing, keep trying, and never getting too, never buying the narrative that's around Winnipeg. And so it makes me feel that much better for a guy he's earned the top 4 position alongside of Pionk. He's earned the extra ice time because of the fact that he's playing tough, he's playing responsible, not without mistakes, and it's adding to his offense. So the confidence for him could be enough to actually have him break out as saying, okay, I'm now a player that every team in the NHL wished they had, wished they would have been patient, wish they would have developed, because that's what's going on here. And give a ton of credit to Kevin Cheveldayoff and the coaching staffs that have been here for Logan, because we're getting more and more consistent peaks at what he can do and maybe the way he can change games. So good for him.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, I mean, there's always a guy or two in particularly Canadian markets that sometimes hear it, not without cause, but just on a personal level for a guy that's been around here for a long time, knew this was a big opportunity. I was a really cool part of what was a pretty magical Saturday night at the rink with the Scheifele record, and then Stan getting a goal. So hopefully good things for him, and the team continue with back-to-back games Thursday and Friday. And I guess we get to see Utah, I believe, for the first time on Sunday, if I'm not mistaken. That'll be interesting to see kind of that team with their new look. They got a name, they got some new players, and they've had a great start at 4-2 so far. Kevin, always appreciate your time. Thanks so much for doing this. Enjoy the rest of the day off, and we'll see you down at the rink, and hopefully soon on WST. Thanks again. Enjoy the World Series too.
Go Jays. Thanks for having me.
Right on. There's Kevin Sawyer, TSN analyst. Of course, he and Dan taking care of Jet fans with all the action on the road and at home. TSN 3. Be back at it on Thursday night against the Seattle Kraken. No practice today, which means no Clean Line lines for our friends over at Clean Line Plumbing, Heating, and Electrical. Of course, Clean Line has been taking care of Winnipeggers and Manitobans for over 40 years, locally owned, and has now grown in one of the largest companies in Manitoba for both residential and commercial plumbing, heating, and electrical. Go to cleanline.ca for more information on all of their services, but just know that when you're in a jam, 24/7 emergency services by calling 204-500-2001. Proud sponsors of the Winnipeg Jets and the official plumbing service of the Winnipeg Jets. Captain approved Clean Line Plumbing, Heating, and Electrical. Check them out today at cleanline.ca. It was a riotous night at Boston Pizzas throughout the city last night as people kept an eye on the football game, lived and died with every pitch of the Blue Jays, and then watched the Winnipeg Jets come back. Sports bar nights don't get much better than last night, but the good news is we're just getting going for the World Series. And Thursday, back at it with the Jets game and Thursday night football. Friday, another Jet game and game 1 of the World Series. BP's all over it. And while you're popping in to your local Boston Pizza, don't forget to check out the new Flight Club menu with pizza flights, wing flights, chicken bite flights, and fry flights, and your chance for a Flight Club invite to win BP's grand prize trip for 2 to California to see Winnipeg play Anaheim February 27th, including flights, hotel, and amazing game tickets at your local Boston Pizza. I have good news for all of you folks that were maybe sleeping on those postseason hats that Royal Sports had. Well, guess what? In the next couple of days, the World Series lids are going to be coming in. And of course, Royal Sports is the spot in town to get the latest championship merchandise. I'm sure there'll be AL championship shirts and hats coming in as well. And of course, the ones with the World Series patch that Jays fans have been waiting for 32 years. Whether it's the best in Blue Jays merch, Winnipeg Jets merch, of course, all the National Hockey League and the NFL. But right now, the run is on Jays gear right now. Head on down to Royal Sports right now. And the next couple days, the World Series hats should be in 750 Pembina Highway. Keep an eye on their Instagram page at Royal Sports Winnipeg for the latest merchandise drops, including the World Series hats and sale information. All right, I want to get to our power poll for the National Hockey League. But first, let's give a big cheers to our friends at Winnipeg's favorite local brewery, Little Brown Jug.
You train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
All right, Jake and Pat are going to jump on. We're going to hit the Cool Bet line, see what the book's cooking up for the World Series. And mostly, I just want to talk to those guys about their night last night. They were losing it in the stadium. And Positive Patty comes through with a Game 7 win. The boys will come by a little bit later on. But let's get to our Chud's Power Sports Power Poll on Winnipeg Sports Talk for Manitoba's Power Sports Superstore, Chud's Power Sports in Gimli, corner of Highway 8 and 231, and online at chudspowersports.com. All right, we will go to number 5. And hey, I'm not sure the Red Wings are going to see any more time on the power poll this year, but they've started 5-1. They've beaten some good teams so far this year, and the record is the record. They're at the top of a very good division. So the Detroit Red Wings get the nod at number 5 this year. Number 4, hopefully far from the first time they'll be on the list, is, of course, your Winnipeg Jets. Jets were down a little bit after that season opening loss, but have rattled off 5 wins in a row, led by their back-to-back Vezina and Hart Trophy winner Connor Hellebuck and the amazing start of Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor. The Jets at 5-1 get the nod at number 4. Just behind the Carolina Hurricanes. Congratulations to Nick Ehlers, who finally got his first point as a Cane. The bad news is it was in their first loss of the season. But the Canes are the real deal. 5-1 so far this season. And certainly if we were basing this just on analytics, would be the number 1 team in the league from what they've been doing. Has been a little bit of a soft schedule, but that's not their fault. Carolina's at number 3. The Vegas Golden Knights are number 2. They are undefeated in regulation, 5-0-2 on the season, led by Jack Eichel and Mark Stone, and an absolutely out-of-this-world power play this year. The Golden Knights have been rolling. They're 5-0-2. And staying at the top of the power poll this week, the Colorado Avalanche, a very, very scary squad, 5-0-1, and right now setting the pace in the Central Division, albeit just 1 point ahead of the Winnipeg Jets. There you go, our Chud Sports Power Poll for the week in the NHL. Colorado, Vegas, Carolina, Winnipeg, and Detroit. Remo, what do you think? Where am I on? Where am I off?
Surprised to see Detroit on there, Huss, but as you said, this is their chance to prove it. I think Colorado looking pretty good. Their power play, I watched that game on, was it Saturday? A lot of chances, couldn't quite bear. They didn't seem that as in sync as normal. Vegas, you could argue them number 1 on a real heater here. Who had Pavel Dorofeyev? You picked him in your fantasy league. You're probably doing pretty well. And it is kind of funny. We've been talking about Nikolai Ehlers and his lack of points. Well, they won all those games, and the game he finally gets a point in. They have their first loss, but it was the end of a long road trip in Vegas. I think it was a tough spot for them. So, yeah, I like this This power poll, where's the defending Cup champions? Florida, Huss, where do you have them on there?
They've dropped off big time. I mean, they had that great start, and I think they've lost 3 or 4 in a row since that 3-0 start. Yeah, they were 3-0, and now they're 3-4. By the way, tonight, Florida with the Rat, Brad Marchand, back in Boston for the first time since he got traded. But maybe that'll spark them because, listen, they're losing. They don't have Barkov. They don't have Tkachuk right now. And they got off to a nice start, but they haven't won in their last 4 contests, all in regulation. So as of right now, they're outside of the top 5. And as I said, I don't think we're going to have opportunities, very many, to be talking about Detroit flirting with the top of the league right now. So they're 5-1. They fit in for that final spot. But those 4 teams that we've got mentioned, I'm sure will be quite constant. Chud's Power Sports, shout out to Derm and the gang. Go visit them in Gimli and check them out online at chudspowersports.ca. Jake and Pat are coming up in just a minute. Pretty quiet on the Bomber front today as we get closer to seeing how everything shakes out in the Canadian Football League playoffs. That will, of course, happen this weekend. Big game that affects the Montreal Alouettes is Friday night. Hamilton against Ottawa. If Hamilton wins, Montreal's locked into the number 2 spot with a likely game against these Winnipeg Blue Bombers in the crossover. So we'll stay on top of that. We'll kind of get a little bit more on the game. And, of course, we'll dive into that tomorrow morning on CFL 110 as well. 10 a.m. We'll be cranking it up tomorrow on the program. But before we bring in Jake and Patty, here's a little bit of Zach Collaros. By the way, amazing feedback yesterday on the show and on social media on the question we asked. It was originally done, I believe, by Boring Sean Monahan, of which win was uglier for the Bombers this year. Friday night's win over the Riders or the infamous 3 completion game against Ottawa. But here's Zach Collaros on getting back to practice, looking ahead to the final game of the season. Of course, what's around the corner. Now they're clinched for the playoffs.
Excited for the opportunity. Obviously to wrap up the season with the understanding that we are in the playoffs, so that's cool. But still got to win and let the rest of the chips fall where they may.
I'm presuming you've had a chance to look back at the game. What do you make of it, the offensive side of that game?
Yeah, kind of like we talked about afterward. I know I was a little short with you, DT. Apologize for that, but just have to do a better job of executing the plays. That's it. Kind of the same stuff we see every week. Try to play our brand of football and execute at a high level.
Does it trouble you that you're saying that after week 20?
Yeah, it does. If you left that game, or if you left some of the games and the way we played this year without a sense of urgency or without a little bit of anger, then I think you're wrong.
All right, well, there's Zach, kind of a funny little back and forth with DT. He looks locked in. The team's going to need to be locked in, maybe not necessarily on Saturday for the final game at Princess Auto Stadium for the Bombers' regular season. And then, of course, the long road back to Princess Auto Stadium is going to likely start in the East against these same Montreal Alouettes. We'll be all over it on CFL 110 tomorrow, presented by our friends at CoolBet, and, of course, a little later on. Hey, speaking of CoolBet, if you missed it off the top of the program, tomorrow night we are back at it. Wednesday night poker series. Jake and Pat are going to jump on in just a minute. And again, we will have a bounty on Jeff Hamilton's head after winning twice in his 2 entries into the tourney. So while there'll be the $100 on my head, there'll be the $100 on Remis's head. The 2 of us and everyone else hopefully are going to be going for a hammer, because we cannot have him come on Friday and do another victory lap again at all of our expense. It's so much fun. If you haven't played with it before, we're starting off at 8 p.m. We'll fire it up on all of our socials, but essentially you just have to go over to CoolBet, click on the poker app. I download it to my computer and play that way. You can do it on your phone. There's a couple different ways. You go into tournaments, search WST. It'll come up. Lock it in and join us tomorrow night, 8 p.m. for the latest edition of the WST poker series. Listen, before we bring the fellas on, do want to remind you that Thursday night at midnight is the next early bird deadline. This one for the Grey Cup bonus. If you're hoping to get to the Grey Cup, you can win 3 pairs of prime seats for the Grey Cup as part of one of the other bonuses, an early bird. And then the following Thursday, October 30th, is the last early bird deadline. There will be 2 winners of a BMW i4 eDrive 35 full EV valued at over $74K plus $26,000 in Indigno travel vouchers or $85,000 cash. 2 winners. And there'll be 30 winners of $500 in gas and groceries from Red River Co-op. And of course, the grand prize, who will be Manitoba's next millionaire? Your choice of 5 beautiful dream home packages valued at $1.5 million, 4 in Winnipeg or the area, 1 in Vancouver Island, or you can take $1.25 million tax-free cash. And of course, the HSC Millionaire Lottery, all in support of Manitoba's Hospital, the Health Sciences Center. Get your tickets today at hscmillionaire.com or pop by your local London Drugs or Red River Co-op location to pick it up. One other quick thing, as we mentioned, Jets back on Thursday and Friday. Friday night is the 90s night against Calgary. Great giveaway as well. That corduroy hat you've seen the players wear on the ads on the broadcasts. First 5,000 fans get those. Get your tickets for Friday night's 90s night. Halloween game the following Thursday against the Chicago Blackhawks. And of course, our next WST night, November 21st, Ehlers, Carolina Hurricanes. Jump on those before they're gone. WinnipegJets.com/WST for your tickets for that. All right. I have been looking forward to it. Normally we do the guys on different days. We're going to have lots to talk about as we get closer to the World Series. But our pals, you see them weekly on WST, joining me. By the way, perfect week. Shout out to me against the spread last week on WST Winners on Friday mornings, 10 a.m. here. But last night, it was boots on the ground for the Cool Bet boys. Pat Gregoire, Jake Bullenmoss join me now. And guys, the towels are still there. Patty, are your ears still ringing from last night?
Oh, are they ever? And the voice is absolutely battling it this morning, man. Unbelievable.
Jake, I always think about you in these moments, and then knowing that you were going to be in there for Game 7, seeing the videos beforehand, I know the roller coaster that you are just as a fan. How was the ticker last night? And were you maintaining positive vibes at the 7th inning stretch going into the inning that changed it all?
Yeah, I mean, I think Patty can attest. I felt I was pretty positive considering, the way I am when it comes to these games and moments. I've watched a lot of Game 7s go the wrong way for my teams. So, I believed it. Just these comeback kids, man, they've done it all year long. Like, you had to believe to the final out. And, yeah, George Springer hits the home run. A side note, if you want to see the reaction, Patty got a great video. We timed it out really well. We could probably tell that story as well, but it's over on the Twitter. Yeah,
there it is right now. I just see these guys. They're so happy. Oh, man. Between the two of you guys, Weber, Scooch, Goldberg that was at the game, there was a major level of FOMO, but I'll tell you what, that was a moment where I kind of feel sorry for people that were maybe watching that by themselves at home, because it's one of those moments that, I mean, if you were, I think in pretty much any sports bar from coast to coast, there was a scene, a mini version of the scene that you guys were in the middle of. But, I mean, it had it all, an incredible series. And, it came down to it, Jake, you mentioned this team's kind of been proving people wrong and making people believe slowly all season long. And that was the moment, George Springer with the homer. And very appropriate that it's him, because let's face it, this guy was the MVP of this team from Game 1 to Game 162.
Yeah, I mean, he's absolutely the guy. He's been the guy all year long. And, I don't know. It's so hard to like put into words, and I almost feel like I'm still in shock. Like I'm watching back videos because when you're in the stadium, you're really only getting the angle in which you're watching the game. Like they don't show a whole lot of replays. Obviously, they show the replay for that homer, but like you're waiting for replays a lot of the time, and it's not coming. So to go back and watch all the different angles, and it was loud in there. And then I watched the replay back and I'm like, oh my God, was it that loud in there? Like, that's what I don't know. It's so hard to kind of grasp it all when you put it all together. But for it to be Springer, like you mentioned, Huss, kind of the team MVP, a huge bounce back year, his best year as a Blue Jay. And for him to drive that home run to left and in what we thought was, I don't know. It sounded like Varsho mentioned that he might have a wrist injury, and the fact that he's able to do that with possibly an injury to the upper body, and maybe that's why he's not playing the field. Anyways, a lot of things that are going through my mind, as you can tell, as I jump around here. But yeah, an absolutely incredible moment, Huss. I mentioned all in the same year, we got the Four Nations overtime goal from Connor McDavid and the George Springer home run, 3-run shot to take the lead in the ALCS.
Who's got it better than you guys? Nobody. I will say this, you guys, the biggest winner last night at Jays, I think, has to be the Toronto Maple Leafs. Because when Vladimir Guerrero Jr. walked into the building last night rocking the Austin Matthews jersey, and by the way, I mentioned this on the show yesterday, old school Leaf fan, I mean, that was a Matthews jersey with the A, so he's had it for a while. This wasn't just put into his hand to do it. It was no stunt. Staring into the face of 7 consecutive Game 7 losses, pat the stones on Vlad to wear that jersey last night and then have the team come through. I actually think this was a big moment for the Leafs too, even though they're in a little bit of disarray right now, actually on the ice.
I'm not too sure who tweeted it out, but Jake showed me yesterday at Jack Astor before the game that the guy literally called his shot. He said, regardless of what happens, Game 7 with the Blue Jays and the Mariners, the big story will be the Toronto Maple Leafs somehow. And sure as shit, before opening pitch, here front and center, Jake and I are taking ricochet shots about how the Leafs can't get it done. But Vlad, he goes up, and this guy, him having to deal with the demons of this team and having the city on his back wasn't enough. No, it was not enough for his own legacy. He decided to battle the demons of the Toronto Maple Leafs and avoiding being an all-time meme. Unbelievable stuff from Vladdy. That's what legends are made of. And I tell you, man, I was scared so much.
I can imagine.
Going down the GO train, Huss. I look at my phone and I see that. First, I saw a tweet without the jersey, and I thought someone was joking. And then I see the photos, the videos, and I'm like, oh no, this is not good.
Jake, I mean, you next year when the Leafs are in the playoffs and going into a Game 7, you will lean on the confidence of one ALCS MVP, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., for the faith that maybe the Leafs can have a different result than they've had the last few times. Hey, it was amazing. I tell you what, there's something so cool about Game 7. I mentioned this to Josh Goldberg earlier. In 2014, I was lucky enough to be at Game 6 and 7 of the World Series in Kansas City, and the Royals stomped them in Game 6, so it went down to an all-or-nothing Game 7. Bumgartner went up in the pen and came out for innings 7, 8, and 9 and shut them down. And, you realize that Game 7's different than every other game. I mean, there's no tomorrow if you don't win. And we saw that last night, Pat. I mean, Gosman coming out, Bassett for the first time in the playoffs, both getting out of huge innings and setting it up for Hoffman, who at time has been a complete gas can this year, but saved his best for the brightest lights. And for all the talk about John Schneider, how we screwed up with one of the worst decisions anyone can remember in game number 5, his pitchers made him look good last night, especially Hoffman getting those final 3 outs in the fashion that he did, striking out the side.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. I think if the Blue Jays lose, even if it's in a tight one in Game 7, I think Jake, myself, and the rest of Blue Jays Nation are probably calling for John Schneider's head. But the way that he managed the bullpen in the last 2 games, I mean, just goes to show you that, he obviously knows what he's doing, or at least made the right decisions. And I think, emptying the tank, putting Gosman in, and then Bassett. You mentioned Bassett, man. That curveball, that strikeout on Suarez,
72.
like that was sneakily one of the loudest the building got during there. When Suarez got it in with the ump, like the place was rocking. Like that guy is an all-time villain, probably going to go down as like an all-time hated player of the Blue Jays. But like when that happened, man, like the place was rocking. Like at that point there, that's where you're like, okay, we've got this. And the place was rocking. Everyone was jazzed up. Everyone was giving it to Suarez. It honestly, like watching it back this morning, I was like, oh yeah, that everyone obviously talk about the Springer dinger, no doubt, like as you should. But that moment right there also will go down in infamy as an all-time Jays moment.
Yeah, Suarez was hot at the time. And to be honest, I think the one that was called the ball earlier was more of a strike than that one was.
Yes.
But again, we know how inconsistent at times some of the balls and strikes have been, and you just have to roll with it. I'm not familiar with Shrek, and I've heard a lot of people say that Suarez looks just like, I think, Lord Voldemort or something like that. You know who he's really, you know who he's really a dead ringer for, Jake? Joey Coldcuts of the Bob Does Sports group. I mean, that is a dead ringer with the long hair too, a little larger fellow. I'll say that, you know what? This was such an amazing series. And I know Remis is probably cringing having as just the big victory lap of the Mariners. But man, what a team the Mariners are. And like one of these teams is going to win, be a big time underdog against the Dodgers. If the Mariners had won, I would have been all in on them too, because they really are a likable team for the most part. I mean, Cal Raleigh, the big dumper, all those amazing young pitchers, and then you think about the misery and the close calls that the Mariners have. It is crazy that this was their closest opportunity to finally getting to the World Series, which they still are the only major league team that's never done it.
Yeah, it's crazy. That team, you're right, Huss. Like you look at the bullpen, that's what I was afraid of, to be honest, when they couldn't manufacture anything, because when you get to the 8th and 9th inning, these guys shut her down. You look through their lineup, throughout the series, they did a lot of manipulating the lineup, but just like it's tough to bat around because they have so many guys with some big bats. So it is heartbreaking for Mariners fans. As a Toronto Maple Leaf fan, a Notre Dame football fan, a Buffalo Bills fan, I know heartbreak better than anyone does. So I feel for the Mariners fans this morning, because going up 2-0, going back to Toronto, up 3-2, just got to take one, and for them to find themselves not playing in the World Series, obviously got to be disappointing. But that's a damn good baseball team. They're going to be back. I would not be surprised to see them go on another deep run next year.
Okay, now we are sort of bearing the lead, because as we finish up the ALCS, we move on to the World Series. Also, a great moment of self-congratulations on the 7-1 number that was hung up on the Blue Jays like mid-season. We believed they got it done last night. There'll be a lot of people that want to get a piece of a team that is a big underdog. But Pat, my jaw was on the floor when I saw the super boost that you did for the people for this. I mean, legitimately the best number anywhere on the Jays to win the series. Fill us in on what the odds are and what you've done for people that want to ride with the Jays.
Yeah, it's the best odds in the market. I'm just pulling up the tweet now, because I won't say the other sports books, but if you look around, you're looking at plus 170, plus 180, 185, 200, but it's plus 250 right now for the Toronto Blue Jays to win the World Series. So if you're looking to support Toronto, you want that underdog story. Heck, even if you're not a Blue Jays fan, but you just want to cheer against the Dodgers and not have a team, there's no better place than CoolBet to get that number. We were talking about it this morning in our weekly meeting. And even though at least my brain was feeling a little bit foggy from last night,
I would have loved to have had a camera in on that meeting this morning of all you guys. Listen, just the thought of that is hilarious. But hey, you gotta get some work done. But yeah, I mean, the series right now in the book, Dodgers minus 222, Jays plus 186. But if you head over to the exclusives, and I'm sure there'll be a lot more cooking as we get closer to the series. But right now, Coolbet exclusives, Blue Jays to win the World Series is boosted up to plus 250. So take advantage of that if you want a little action on Toronto in the World Series.
I'll tell you, Huss, though, the one thing that I've already looked at in the futures already, there's a lot of World Series specials up there. Most hits in the series, most RBIs, home runs, 14-1 on our boy Ernie to have the most hits in the World Series. I know there's some very impressive bats in that Dodgers lineup, heck, even in the Jays lineup. But at 14-1, I really like that number, and you guys know I will never turn my nose up on a Ernie Clement prop.
I'm Jake. I'm particularly excited that Bo is apparently going to be available. Now we'll see if he's going to play regularly and every day. But you will recall we had some fun with WST winners when we were getting ready for the playoffs, looking at the pre-playoffs World Series MVP odds, and I do have a Bo ticket at 75-1, but my favorite one, and this guy he's made to be a World Series hero, Alejandro Kirk, 120-1 before the playoffs. He's 30-1 right now. No surprise that Ohtani is the favorite at plus 170. But if you want to ride with the Jays, I mean, the guy that's been driving the bus, Vladdy Jr., he's 6-1. Freddie Freeman and George Springer, 10-1. Former Jay, Teoscar Hernandez, and then Blake Snell, Mookie Betts, Dalton Varsho in there, or Dalton Varsho, I should say, and Alejandro Kirk. So right now, up on the board, I mean, if you click the series prices, you can take the handicap. If you want to take Jays plus a couple of games, you can do that. There's the correct score after 3 games, and then a full lineup of most home runs in series, most hits in series, as Pat just mentioned with Ernie, most RBIs in series, and most stolen bases in series, as well as full odds for the World Series MVP. WST winners will be Friday morning at 10 a.m. We will, of course, get to the football picks and try and keep this heater rolling. Congratulations, boys. Handshake for the partner parlay victory last week as well. But I have a feeling there might be a few last-minute sprinkles for the World Series, so we'll save that for you guys as well. And then, of course, Patty, tomorrow we're back at it with another big poker tourney. I'm fired up.
Yeah, it's exciting, and the people asked for it, and we got it. The most anticipated bounty in WST poker tournament history. The Hammer, the defending champ. You can't just call us out and say we haven't invited you anymore. You can't say, oh, we're dodging you and not have a bounty on your head. Hey, I will say this, though. He called his shot. He won the thing last time. So you know what, Huss, when you've got that bounty on your head, Remis has said this too, people come for you. They play a different game. So with that pressure, that additional pressure on the Hammer, we'll see if he's still able to take everyone down.
We hope to see you all tomorrow, 8:00 p.m. We'll get things going. And again, we'll have it up on the socials for the link, but just head over to Coolbet, click on poker, download the poker, and then go to tournaments and search WST. Count yourself in, and we'll see everyone tomorrow at 8 p.m. when you can go for the bounties and try and take Hammer's title from him on the digital felt, if you will. Boys, great stuff. Awesome videos yesterday. And again, I just think back to the start of the series. So proud of you, Pat. Positive Patty stayed the course after losing game 1 and 2. And here we are talking about the Blue Jays in the World Series. Who would have thunk it? Who would have believed it after game 2?
Positive Patty walked, so positive Jake could run. That's
yes. Yeah. Huss, who would have believed it
at the start of the year. Like, I know game 2, but like the fact that we're sitting here talking about a World Series appearance from a team that I was ready to boycott at the start of the year is pretty insane. So they've been proving me wrong all year. They just got to prove us wrong.
You know, it is so funny. I'm sitting here with diehard Blue Jays fans, and who was the guy that hit the over 78.5 wins? Who was the guy that had the AL right here? That's listen, maybe a little bit of ahead of the curve on this thing, guys, but they were too good to be that bad, and it's all gone right, and now they're 4 wins away. Big test going up against the Dodgers, but at this point, with everything they've done, why not them? Boys, so happy for you. Have a great one. We'll hook up later on this week, hopefully get some few more winners, and then get ready for the weekend with the World Series in your neck of the woods.
You said it best. Why not us?
Good stuff. Yeah, swing them. There's Jake and Pat. You can give them a follow at P. Greggy, at Jake Bolin Moss, and of course, give at Coolbet Canada a follow on all the social channels. Some great stuff from the game last night when they joined us. I want to bring Remo in here for a minute because we did hit the power play earlier. I know we were kind of talking just Blue Jays with the boys who were at the game last night, but Remo, we got a pretty big slate in the league tonight, despite the Jets being off for a couple days.
Yeah, a lot of NHL games on the schedule. It is Tuesday night. NHL has been a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday league. We all remember the first Friday of the season where there were no games. Like, I don't know what they're doing there. But, yeah, a lot of games on tonight. Good night for multiple TVs. You can relax a little. We're not so dialed in on the Blue Jays, right, Huss?
Oh, this is going to be so nice for the next couple days. Kind of rest tonight. We'll do the poker tourney tomorrow.
Yes.
And then get back at it with back-to-back games at Canada Life Center. And, of course, the World Series on Friday and on Saturday. I tell you what, let's put together a little 3-gamer, and I'll send it over to the guys to get a bit of a boost.
Are you looking for
who do we
winners
like tonight? Yeah,
or
just
for...
straight up money line winners. Let's pick three teams. In the chat, if you have a pick for tonight, fire it in there. I don't mind Vancouver in Pittsburgh. They've been playing quite well. They went in and beat the Dallas Stars. I could get behind Vancouver. Don't mind the St. Louis Blues at home to LA. I certainly could be convinced the Colorado Avalanche in Utah against the Mammoth.
Yeah. I like
those 3 sort of just jump out to me. Anything with you?
No, I think we're on the same page there. Maybe you have a lean in New Jersey plus money against Toronto seems okay on the road. Like, you want it to be a nice pay. You want to be taking like massive favorites.
Listen, the Leafs have already had their first players or a closed door meeting of the year. So I think I'm staying away from that game. They got called out by Stolars for not backing him up and being tough enough. So there's a lot of smoke. If the Jays were out right now, the noise out of Leafland would be so loud. They're just happy to let the Jays take the spotlight and try and get their act together. But as I said, I don't really feel either that side. The Washington number is way too chalky to play. Wow, the Kraken are playing a lot. This is going to be the tail end of their road trip as they head back.
This Kraken road trip, like, they're here Thursday. Connor and I did the post-game show or post-game reaction yesterday, and we were looking at the Kraken schedule. It seems like they've been on the road forever because they did the Canadian swing, and now they were in Philly last night, Washington tonight, and then here. So this is a 6-game road trip for them, and it'll be ending on Friday here in Winnipeg. So they did Montreal last Tuesday, Ottawa Thursday, Toronto Saturday, Philly yesterday, Washington tonight, and then Winnipeg. So I'm curious what they're going to have in the tank here on Thursday. They're 1-2. They had the overtime win in Toronto, and they lost to Montreal and Ottawa. So Kraken, a team to watch, certainly to watch, I guess, if you want to pre-scout the Jets' next opponent.
So what do you think about this? We go Vancouver and then St. Louis and Colorado.
That works.
Plus 477. I think you don't have any big objections to either of those 3 teams?
No, I like Colorado for sure in Utah. St. Louis home as well. You know, LA's been a team. I talked to you were away. I had Matt Larkin from Daily Faceoff on the show, and I was like, which team is going to be a huge disappointment? And he said LA. They signed, a lot of big, slow defensemen like Cody Ceci. That was a signing that, was maligned on July 1. And who was it? Brian Dumoulin's in there. And LA, you look at their goal differential, they're not off to a great start right now. They're 1-3-2. They're near the bottom, so we'll have to see if they can pull out of it. And St. Louis at home, decent start, 3-2.
They had those terrible 2 home games early on, and I think they've sort of pulled it out. So I think they'll be locked and loaded on home ice tonight. And as I say, if you're going to give me the Avalanche, shorter than minus 140 against anyone other than maybe the top few teams in the league, I'm in. So I'm going to throw that into the fellas, and we'll probably get that up in the exclusives under Winnipeg Sports Talk Parlay, although they might throw it up into the combo cards under Ride with Huss. But if you put it in yourself, it's plus 477. I have a feeling the guys will probably put that up somewhere in and around plus 525 after a little boost. We'll see if we can get a nice winner and keep it rolling.
Yeah, shout out to Puck Handler in chat who says Mark Scheifele is 60-1 to win the Rocket Richard at Goldberg. He's actually 65-1. So, I mean, why not at this point? He's after 5 games, he's got 7 goals or 6 games. So, if you want to have some fun, something to root for, I am enjoying the awards betting. I have some Jack Eichel, Art Ross and Hart got him at an okay number. So I'll be cheering for Jack Eichel.
I've got that Matthew Schaefer ticket at 17-1. He went from 17 to 4-1 after the first week of the year. I just see Art Ross, Rocket, and Hart trophy numbers up right now. If you're wondering about our buddy, the defending champion, Connor Hellebuck, he's 55-1
for the Hart.
For the Hart right now. I mean, going back to back would be wild. Hasek did do it. But again, if you're interested, hard on that. Kyle Connor, 200-1. Not sure if I see Scheifele on this list. But again, listen, if a Jet is going to win it, it's in all likelihood going to be Connor Hellebuck. But again, 55-1 right now for those of you that are interested. And Draisaitl, the favorite for the Rocket, plus 325. Matthews plus 370. Kaprizov plus 565. McKinnon 10-1. Pasta plus 1350. Connor McDavid 19. And Tage Thompson, Mikko Rantanen, both 20-1. And yes, as you mentioned, Kyle Connor's 30-1. And Mark Scheifele, 65-1 right now, as Remis mentioned.
Funny enough, I bet Mark Scheifele to win the Rocket. I even forgot about this at 150-1 on the 18th.
Nice.
On the 18th, and it's now 65-1. So,
great Val there. That's the sharp move. That's the sharp movers, Remo.
That's Val. That is
go to one of those brokerages, or you can sell a piece of it, and get your money back, and you'll be riding with it.
Yeah, my dollar.
All up there. Gregory was just mentioning as well, NBA tip-off tonight. Well, we don't talk a ton of NBA. Big slate of games two big games this evening. Houston Rockets against OKC Thunder. They'll raise the banner in Oklahoma. And then Warriors-Lakers. That should be fun. I was looking at the futures for the NBA. OKC plus 225 to win the championship. Next is Denver at plus 650. Cleveland is 7-1. It's such a crazy short number for a league the size of the NBA. But to be honest, it's right. I think we're just entering the OKC era right now. Maybe we'll have to put a little bit of the Jays winnings from the ALCS on the Oklahoma City Thunder. But you want to check out all those futures and maybe get a division bet, a win total bet, or just a championship bet before tip-off tonight. It is all there at CoolBet. And again, don't forget, tomorrow night, poker night, 8 p.m. Hope that you'll join us and play. Should be a heck of a lot of fun. The guys say they're popping that thing in. It should be up in the next 10, 15 minutes or so over at CoolBet if you want to ride with the WST parlay today. St. Louis over the Kings, Vancouver over the Penguins, Avalanche over the Utah Mammoth. I do want to get to a fan feedback brought to you by Fans First. Lots of it. Here, it's Kevin Lillis. By the way, Fans First, your number one spot for buying and selling Winnipeg tickets on the resale market. No added fees. What you see is what you pay. All Winnipeg Jets games and Blue Bomber games, even the Grey Cup, available at fansfirst.ca, and no added fees, unlike the other resale sites. Keith Lilly says, how about the guy catching the Springer home run wearing the Springer jersey? And Remo, that Springer jersey, that was like a Springer football jersey. It didn't really even look like a Jays jersey. And yet there he was catching it. Big, listen, obviously with something like that, a lot of people had their hands in it, but pretty cool for that guy to get it. And I'll tell you what, that ball probably worth a hell of a lot. Heard that the Ohtani home run balls from the 3 home run game earlier worth upwards of $3 million each.
So I saw that jersey when he caught the ball. At first glance, I thought that was a great ad for the Argos. I thought it was like an Argos alternate Nick Arbuckle jersey, number 4, right? But he turned it around and it was a Springer on the name bar. And I thought, how fitting. And there's an interview with him. Canadian Press did it. Rihanna Lims got that article. And he said, I was texting my cousin telling him I was front row about to catch the home run ball to leave me alone. Dropped the ball and caught the phone. And he said he had a feeling about the 7th inning. You remember Jose Bautista homered with the bat flip in the 7th inning. And his quote about being at that game and catching the ball, the most real I've ever felt. And and he said he's going to do what's right for the ball. And he was tired of being on the couch and scrolling and passively watching. He needed to feel something real. That's why he spent money on the ticket to the game. And I'm trying to find the quote, what he's going to do. He's open to doing what's best for the ball if it means trading back to the Blue Jays as a piece of memorabilia. But right now he's holding it and savoring the moment.
Yeah, he'll have some options, and it'll be worth a lot. I mean, the Springer home run ball, I guess if they, I don't know what happens to the value of it. If they win the World Series, there'll be more moments, but that will still be an all-time moment. If they lose, which, I mean, obviously they're big underdogs in this, I wonder, is that still the moment of this playoff run? It's a favorite ball, or does it lose a little bit of value because they didn't end up being world champions?
You know, the Jose Bautista bat flip home run, which is so iconic. I mean, in the end, they lost in the ALCS to the Royals that year, but that moment was so crazy. What was going on with Russell Martin throwing the ball and hitting Shin-Soo Choo? Like, has that ever happened since, when a catcher throws a ball to a pitcher and it hits the batter's bat in the batter box? I think that's the only time that's ever happened. And it was so crazy with things being thrown on the field, and for him to homer in that moment, I'm getting chills recalling that. And yesterday, it did seem like the Blue Jays, were going to lose, and they're down 3-1, and with one swing of a bat, they're up 4-3. It was an incredible moment, and we played the video of Pat in the stands, like freaking out. There's so many like that across Canada. I haven't seen the viewership numbers. I'm sure they're going to be extremely high. The DS averaged 3.5 million and peaked at 11 million. Sure, the average will be like 8 million.
This one, I wouldn't be surprised if more Canadians watched the game than Americans yesterday. Like, I can't wait to find out what these TV numbers are, because I think it is going to be mind-boggling how many people are tuned in. And listen, the World Series against the almighty Dodgers is just going to, I think, take that up to another level. Great stuff in the chat today. So much Jays talk. Scardy, the big dumper, just signed a huge endorsement deal with Waste Management, Inc.
So Rogers just put out the release. Average of 6 million viewers tuning in to watch. The game reached 11.8 million Canadians. So a lot of people watching.
Wow.
Bringing in people, that's bringing people who are not normally baseball fans. We're getting a lot of great questions in the chat as well. People wanting to know about Blue Jays or about MLB salary or playoffs. And I think that's awesome. It brings in a lot more fans. So congratulations. And I think they do a great broadcast as well. I mean, how long have you been watching Dan Shulman and Buck Martinez and Hazel May? Like, this is a pretty cool moment for Blue Jays fans and for Canadian baseball.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And hey, I mean, props to your Mariners, man. Hell of a team and a great run. Very, very likable team that I think everyone would have been pulling for if it didn't go the Jays' way. But now the Jays move on, and they get Shohei Ohtani and the star-studded, as they say, it's like the Galactic All-Star team, the Los Angeles Dodgers. But this is why they play the games, folks. And as they say, if you want to put a little sprinkle on them, go to the Coolbet Exclusives, plus 250. You won't find that number anywhere else. Great show today, everybody. Appreciate everyone popping on today. We'll have a big one tomorrow. Reem, is Ken back tomorrow?
Ken is on tomorrow. He was at the game, and then Ken doing double duty, watching the Jets game on his phone on the GO train and making it for KNR. So
KNR.
We'll talk with Ken, and yeah, John Shannon, right? He's good to go from 100% Hockey Podcast. So we'll have a lot of Jets discussion, some Jays as well. Will come up. A lot of people interested in that. Bombers getting ready for their final game. Pretty close to a sellout, about 750 tickets left. So we'll raid.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay, cool.
If they sold out every game, I mean, pretty impressive stuff there. And
unprecedented.
Yes. And we will be raiding the Bombers channels. Ed, I think they're live with Willie Jefferson. And we'll
nice.
We're working on being there next Tuesday, and you will be in person on the huddle with Ed. So that's very exciting.
Jumping on the huddle as well. Yeah, we're going to do a fun show with the Bombers to get ready for their first playoff game next week. So that's going to be coming up on Tuesday. But in the meantime, yeah, we'll send you over to the huddle. Again, fans first. Fan feedback is always brought to you by fansfirst.ca. By fans, for fans, no fees. Enjoy it. Rest up tonight, folks. Get some of the rest that you probably didn't get last night. And tomorrow we've got the poker tourney. I hope you'll join us. And then we're right back at it with a couple more game day editions heading into the weekend, as Seattle is next up for the 5-1 Winnipeg Jets. And then the Calgary Flames, who we just saw yesterday here in Winnipeg for 90s night at the rink on Friday. That is going to do it for us. Huge thanks to Kevin Sawyer for jumping on, Josh Goldberg, Pat and Jake, and everyone. Fun chat today with everyone so hyped after the baseball win. And, of course, the Jets winning their 5th straight and Jonathan Toews' first NHL goal in his return. We will see you tomorrow, 1 p.m. John Shannon, Ken Wiebe. Going to be a packed one. I hope you'll join us. Have a great night, and see you tomorrow on WST.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.